been saying that now they want the models to be personable, that everyone can pick their own personality for whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
So that fits into that, I guess. Maybe Elon forced their hand. Like he wasn't doing too well, and he was doing too well. They're like, shit, can't let Elon win that race.
Yeah. Force their hand is a funny turn of phrase considering the content.
Oh man.
I feel like, uh, I mean, I don't know. I saw a graph of how their user engagement over time was going down pretty dramatically. Um,
Really? I haven't seen that actually.
I don't know if it's accurate. I mean, that was
But yeah,
the headline, you know. I didn't actually
there's a
look at the
lot of things to
information.
sort there. Like, if we're talking about 4.0, yeah, obviously I can see that dropping off, right? Like, which is normal. Are we talking about Sora? Like, are we talking about 5? Like,
I'm not
no way
sure.
Sora 2 is. Like, I mean, I'm sure Sora 2 dropped off the initial bit, but yeah, I don't even know how you measure that either. Like, it's just like number of paid subscriptions or like hours spent.
Well, I don't think they've announced anything negative. I think
Okay,
it was just somebody trying to extrapolate.
very difficult
Yes. Yeah.
to do.
But that was the scuttlebutt is the reason they're releasing the opening the floodgates, the goon gates, is
I mean,
because they're
I
trying
don't
to.
think it's coincidence. I told you. I think they're literally they're just the next version of Facebook. Literally, that's what they're turning into. It's kind of funny. Like, literally, like, that one slogan. Oh, what's that slogan? Oh, God, I already forgot it. The one Zuckerberg's like famous like slogan, break stuff or whatever.
They trust in me, the stupid fucks. Move fast and break stuff.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Literally, like OpenAI started like building like that right when Zuckerberg was like, "Oh, Meta's not going to do that anymore. We're not supporting that anymore." And literally, was like, "Oh my God, Ouroboros, like it's real."
hmm It's everywhere.
It is inescapable.
I'm thinking about getting an Ouroboros tattoo, but the
It'd be pretty
snake would
sick.
be decapitated.
Oh, we're going for the metal version. I dig it.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any tattoos?
No, my wife does. She's into that and all that stuff. I've just never. I don't know. Never really cared. Like nothing against them or anything. I've just never really wanted one.
Yeah. No, God bless. Probably more likely to get into heaven without them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like a philosophical position or anything. I just don't want one. Like I like no stance on that whatsoever. Like I just no desire to get one. I don't know.
Yeah. Amen.
As I said, like my wife's pretty much. My wife actually wants me to get them.
Oh
Talk
yeah.
about it. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Just don't care. And she's like, she thinks I have something against them because I'm like, I don't want. I'm just like, no, I just don't want one.
Yeah, but if you didn't have anything against them, you would kill one, right? Why won't you affirm the choices? God bless.
So then she tries to get me, like, she tries to ask me, like, what would you get? And I'm like, I literally don't know. Like, I don't. She's like shocked. I don't have an answer. I'm like, because I don't want a tattoo. I haven't thought about what I would even get. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, but if she turned into a caterpillar, would you still love her? It's always the hypotheticals.
Yes. Hypotheticals get you for sure. Hmm. Oh, I did listen to that the Land Dugan like interview. That was fascinating.
Oh, what'd you think?
Oh, it was great. I loved it. Like, it was super
Right?
interesting.
Right?
Yeah. More of that stuff, please. Like,
Yes.
and I gotta give Oren a little more credit. Like, he's kind of annoying on Twitter because it's all politics and that shit. But like, he did a pretty good job of not saying anything
Right?
and just holding a debate at that level was sick. Like, it was just really cool. Um, and also like Land kind of that was what I expected, I guess, for the most part. But Dugan like really impressed me. I hadn't really As I said, I really dived into like his stuff, but a lot of what he says is pretty closely aligned with the way I feel about
I can't tell if it's deliberate misrepresentation since he is seen as like Putin's backdrop, or if it's just that, he's doing most of his thinking and writing in Russian or something. I don't even know.
it's a little bit of both, Like, I mean, to me, I would say that yeah, that's the secular theist painting him as Dugin's like, or as Putin's like henchman or whatever. But like, just from that chat, nope, he's a real thinker. Like, he's not a stooge. Like, that's absolutely a real thinker. He didn't even mention Putin once. Like,
Yeah. No, he's a
that's
serious philosopher.
yeah. I'm not that I okay. Not that I didn't take him like unseriously, but I definitely it wasn't like I believe that he was Putin's stooge or anything. But I have seen him as more of a political, like geopolitical philosopher, more than anything else, which he's known for.
Yeah.
Right, that's what he's known for. But I, but yeah, that was not about this at all. And I was like, oh, okay, this is way more of my stuff.
What do you think about his whole fourth political turning kind of comment?
What I thought was fascinating, which really appealed to me, is how he kind of like refused to define it. He refused to be like, well, not define it, but he said he was very clear that it was a temporary thing, right? That he wasn't trying to like predict what would come next. He said it was like leaving it open, which that appealed to me.
Yeah, yeah, I could see how it would.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. That's why I like. I really liked listening to him. A lot of what he said is really close. A lot of things, especially the stuff at the end of the his terminology, but like the rational specter or whatever, rational. The thing that's like left after you strip everything else out that makes you human. It was what he was talking about towards the end. And it's like I don't know what you're talking about.
Not the Dasein.
No. That was much earlier. All right, hold on. My pick.
Yeah, I can't remember much of the substance of what they talked about.
Um, what I thought was most interesting is like how New Game was like very, very subtly and very carefully pushing Land, like in like very interesting ways that I don't think Land was totally ready for. Um, like the main way is that I don't think he expected like Dugan to like Dugan basically affirmed him like for the most part, right? Like he was like he I think Land expected Dugan to be more hostile because like on the surface level they're like little opposites. Dugan is your traditionalist and is like your Mac accelerationist kind of thing, but like sort of. Um, but Dugan was like, yeah, you're right. You're totally right about like especially about the machine and like the march of progress and the just end state of like technology. And Dewey was like, "Yep, you're all right." And I think it landed a little off because like what Dugan was trying to say is that like you're kind of like he made the direct comparison to Nietzsche, like in the God is Dead thing, that like Nietzsche wasn't like what who caused God is Dead to happen, like caused to kill God. He was just a herald, like the announcer of it. And Dugan was trying to like paint Land like as Nietzsche, but for like the advent of the total machine, domination of machines. And that I think that unsettled Land. Like Land was, I don't think Land was ready for that. I don't think I mean, he does see himself. That's what he is. It's just I don't
Oh,
think he was ready for Dugan to be like, "Yep, that's what you are," and then still be like, "But I still still stick to my traditional stuff."
yeah. Well, I mean, that's how I took what Dugan was, how he was describing his fourth conception, is that it really does come down to the individual. That it's very much an
What he said,
individualist project.
he the liberal modernity, yeah. Um, but he said something. He said one thing about God, that we are as free as gods, but not as powerful. I think is what he said at some point.
Oh,
Like that
that's
was pretty interesting
interesting.
too.
Yeah.
And you probably don't remember this, but his philosophy of time was fascinating. Like we talked about time a little bit. I from what I got, it's like basically that he was saying that like different cultures, like different philosophy, and with their different philosophy of time, that like kind of affects how they view the world in terms of like kind of good and evil with it as an eschaton,
Yes.
and that was totally fascinating. I was like, oh my god, I gotta read more of this about this. I don't
It's
remember the details.
That's one of those ideas that I just can't incorporate really. Like I can see how it's true and I'm familiar with the cyclical thinking of ancient societies. But like from cyclical to the more linear is very comfortable for me. I'm able to make that transition, but the idea of thinking of time backwards or thinking of time in all these different mishmash of ways is I can't say
Yeah,
that I can incorporate that into my thinking at all. I just don't even know how to.
he wasn't talking about like that all of them are true or whatever. It was like it was more like how their views of time or affects their culture. Like we, in our society, we have a very linear like time, and that makes us think of like a progressive standpoint. There's always a progression aspect to it because we perceive time. Like, they're always making progress. I think they're always getting better
Yeah.
because we perceive time, right? And then yeah, you talked about the other cultures how they didn't do that. And that's I can't talk about that off the top of my head because I'm familiar with it, but I'm not so familiar. But yeah, that was fascinating.
Well, I mean, now that you say that, it seems to me that the reason we think linearly of time is because we're basing it off of Christ and he clearly maps out an end, right? So we have to see it as a progression. And maybe that's what it comes down to for other cultures is it depends on how they conceptualize their god.
It's hard to, it's a chicken or the egg thing to kind of say which comes first. Like,
That's interesting.
uh, yeah, was he? I'm looking at the transcript. Let me see if I can find it. Orrin posted a transcript.
Mm, I need to read that.
Nice to look over it. Yeah, well, man, the one thing I really I need to read Heidegger. There's both of them are so dependent on him, or at least heavily influenced by him, and
They
I
really
haven't
are.
read him. Yeah, and I need. He's been on my list for yet. Like I have Being in Time like, sitting around my desk, but it's a whole like that kind of book is like you gotta like devote yourself. like I just haven't had time to do
I just don't have being to do it.
that. I'm gonna
It's
do it. I'm gonna do it eventually.
yeah. Once the robots put us out of all of our jobs, how about that? We'll do a book club,
I mean, I'm definitely gonna have LLMs help me understand it. So
right? How long do you think before we can substantively clone academic perspectives? Like you could just talk to Heidegger about his book,
oh god, I mean, we're talking about for just LLM should be able to do that. Like I mean, they already do. Like, are you talking about like literally visually? Like you can open up your phone or whatever device and just be like, "Yo, what do you think about this?"
I
I
mean,
mean, you can already make LLMs basically do that. I'm pretty sure you can tell them like pretend you're Heidegger,
but how
explain your
accurate do you think it is? Do you
how
think
accurate.
Heidegger would agree with, or speak? I'm saying like, really clone, like speak the same as him, believe it is him.
I don't know, but I don't think that's possible. Oh, perception. Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay, if they can literally be him, I don't. I
Act
mean,
as if they
perception is
were.
easy. Perception is easy. Like for like night. Well, like most people would have no idea. Like that's the thing. Like the farther we get away from actual Heidegger, it's like how do you even tell this is actual Heidegger? Like because his biographers might be like, oh my god, this is off. But like literally 95% of people will be like, oh yeah, Heidegger, sign me up. So not that far, I guess, from a. I don't think that perception part is like super hard. It doesn't need to be like a literal personality clone. Although from what I can tell, I don't think they would want a personality clone of Heidegger. Kind of seemed like a gigantic asshole. So
I mean, I'm looking at the PDF and the freaking index is 6 pages long. What a douche.
yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, it was a Nazi, so that's generally a non-starter.
I
At the
mean,
beginning.
give it 6 months and freaking half of America is going to identify as Nazis.
I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing more like legit calls for kings. I'll say that. I
I'm
still can't tell
so
if that's
torn
just
about that one.
man. It's probably just Twitter, the Twitter right people. But
I mean, I think a lot of the culture is made on Twitter. I think Twitter is a presage of what's coming down the
I do
pike.
too, but that's a big one. But I do think the No Kings protests are like part of like making that happen. You know, from like a hyperstition standpoint, that you're just making everyone think about it. You know, and that makes you consider like just having a No Kings protest is like makes the person think we have a king. You know, it raises the question. Right? Most
Interesting.
people
Very
right now
interesting.
would be like, oh, this is how I think about everything. That's what I was telling the one guy like about Doom, about Kowski's book. Um, uh, and so that's like step one. Is like you open the debate, you open the subject, that opens the floodgates,
And
and
of course,
obviously the
it's
thing
the
is you have
left that's
you
doing that.
it's the Overton. It's just a standard Overton window stuff. Like Overton windows open, and yes, exactly. That's kind of what I think. Like that's why I view both sides kind of being more just two wings of the machine rather than like truly opposite.
Yeah. Do you think it was conscious, intentional by the Democratic leadership or whatever third party is behind them?
No, I think no. I mean, there's no. I don't really think that those kind of leads have as much sway as we think. I do think they do have a lot, but I don't think it's like not to that level. Like for example, the people who thought that that they engineered like Biden's dropout. I would pressure, sure, engineer that made it all happen. Like no, I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know, man. I think,
But I don't totally blame people who think that. I can't. I can't.
well, look at the precedents, right? Like in the Democratic National Convention, the call went out to Elizabeth Warren, to Pete Buttigieg, that Biden was going to be the nominee. And days
Yes.
later, they drop out. And then
Yeah,
Bernie
I'm not
gets all
saying.
this
Yeah,
pressure. Like they obviously
definitely
do
did.
try and pick and choose their candidates.
Yeah, but they're doing it for the president though. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing.
If it was any other president, I'd say you're right, but he was
True.
late stage, early stage, whatever stage dementia.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, again, I'm sure they pressured him. It's engineering is the operative word. I don't think
Yeah,
that they was like, oh, yep, it's time to make a switch. Let's make it happen. Boom, it happens. Like I don't think they quite have that level, right?
I don't know. I
That's
wouldn't say they have
really
that level of intentionality. Like I'm not saying they're designing all this behind the scenes or something, but I do think that they have a very overt level of, call it influence, call it whatever you like. But
there
not
is
even
definitely.
with the no king stuff. Like I'm not even saying that they're trying to um I don't know exactly. But what I am saying they're trying to do is potentially like the same thing they did with Trump in 2016 when they thought he had no chance of winning. They're trying to pick their opponent. And so they're trying to, I don't know. I just don't rule out, especially since Nick Land has come to the fore, I don't rule out that politicians think in that same kind of hyperstitious, hyper sigil way.
Yeah, Super Mitchell. We're getting there. Oren is a pretty influential figure, and he's clearly thinking like this. Like,
I had never heard of him
maybe,
before.
maybe I shouldn't say pretty. On Twitter, he's a semi-influential figure. That's more accurate.
I mean, he
He's
has a
not
lot of followers. And I think I heard
right.
Tucker Carlson reference him another time too.
Yeah, I think he's getting that. Yeah, he's getting named. Well, I don't. He's not like. Yeah, I don't think your average person would know who he was. Obviously, I think at least if you're on the right, you do. Let's put it like that. Or the online right, you know who he is. Let's put it like that. I think that's the best way to put my.
Stop saying it's a mental disorder. It's evil. You don't need to medicalize everything. Evil is real. What do you think of that? That's from his Twitter page.
What is he referring to? Like, stop. In any context.
It could be about anything. That's kind of the brilliant part about it.
I mean, I would agree. Like, probably broadly. Like, do think like it's part of my secular theism thing that we try to like put a name and label on everything on something that shouldn't be like, and that's how we treat a lot of people. It's like, oh, you have X thing, that means you get Y treatment.
I mean, that does seem like a good thing to me because I would say that people aren't evil. Systems are evil. the
Oh,
outworkings of those systems are evil, but I would not ascribe evil to people. And so you can't say. I mean, I'm
you're
assuming
talking
he's
about the
talking.
morality part.
Well, yeah. Um, Beyond the morality part, there's like a justifying belief system that gets wrapped up once you start identifying people are evil. If people are evil, then evil needs to be exterminated. Then you got to exterminate people. Like that's no good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I wouldn't again, like I wouldn't, even what I was saying, like yeah, I wouldn't blame anyone. Like, but I mean, I still think I was like people can be evil, but not way less so than systems for
People can be destructive. People can work evil. But I'm drawing. There's a difference there to me between being something and enacting something. And often, we're so often a product of our circumstances. You know, you're telling me if you took Hitler and raised him on a tropical island 5,000 years ago, he would turn out to be the exact same dude. Like,
Oh, I completely agree with that. Like that's a Daryl Cooper, Martin made. He talked about that a lot. Like how like that that like all these people like who we think of as conceived as evil or whatever. Like if we saw them as kids, we probably just would have thought they're normal kids. Um, Especially if like a lot of their upbringing is what led to them. I mean, it's always I guess it's always this is just going back to the nature versus nurture thing. But yeah, Daryl Cooper talks about that a lot. He brings up kind of that point. It's like when he because he talks about terrible people and terrible shit a lot. So like he has to kind of make these like qualifier claims like that because he's a good job at that. I think he has a good feel of that. He understands that if he just talks about terrible things, he just says these people are evil, then that's a over moralization. That's a big trap. I agree for that for sure. I would not like ever. Certainly, I don't think I would ever call like me good or evil. It's not good face anyway.
yeah,
Publicly.
it is tricky because I think of the connection between like a person to a society in the same way as a cell to your body. I wish I knew more about biology to make more crisp distinctions. But like I wouldn't say a person is evil, but I would say a cell is cancerous and
Yeah.
that needs to be dealt with somehow.
Well, okay, because like I'm on an individual level that makes sense. Like, and Dugin was actually talking about this, like that on a societal level, you kind of culture you like need to have absolute evil and absolute good just to make things meaningful. Because like that's almost like what humans are. All right, let me find this part of the transcript. I don't. Absolute.
Yeah.
Okay, I found it. All right, so this is where he's talking about the time, right? So there's no history that is just repetition of the same as maybe as an Indian vision, Zoroastrian time. So there are cultures of civilization without time at all. But time as well depends on civilization. What we
Without
are
time at
dealing
all
with.
makes no sense to me. How do you not have time?
I wish he elaborated on that, but I don't. I mean, well, I it makes sense before the advent of the clock and like watches and that stuff like that, like because like I don't. It's not necessarily a natural instinct. I mean, obviously you want to track night and day, the age of the day, but like literally give it numbers, like that's probably what he's referring to.
How could like yes, you're tracking night and days, but almost every pre-written civilization track the skies, track the natural pattern of the seasons.
Well, I guess this comes down to definitely what he means by like without time at all, like because again, if he just means thinking in terms of like assigning, categorizing, assigning numbers and like days times hours, I think that is what he's getting at rather than like, you can't not pay attention to see. I think he means like philosophical or abstractly.
Yeah, I could see.
Not sure. That would be a more beat. We'd have to read him actually figure that out. This is the problem when you have to think super deeply. It's hard to say. Okay, so what we are dealing with is a kind of Iranian time, Zoroastrian time, where there is the line, there is the process, that is explained in the Zoroastrian tradition by the existence of the absolute evil and absolute good. Unfortunately, I don't know what he means by Zoroastrian. I know they're big like Google good evil. That's why each of our name is Zarathustra. But where there's the line, there's the process.
He called it Uranian time. That's interesting.
Yeah, like Persian.
Oh, I thought Uranian as in Uranos.
No, no. Like Iran. Like only existence of absolute evil makes history something meaning. So without that, it will just be a play. But if they're a real fight, so who will win, the god of evil or god of good? I think what he's saying is that that's like where meaning comes from. That you have to have like that kind of evil. That you have to be that motivated or true faith, like to really believe in something.
Yeah.
And that's what gives purpose. But again, I don't. I still that doesn't necessarily mean I would. I think he would necessarily say like individuals are evil. I think he would. Well, he called AI Antichrist. He did say that. Okay. I was like, okay, I
Bro,
don't know if I agree with that.
I was so pumped when he said that. I 100% agree.
Oh, again, I'm not going to disagree, but like totally. But in some ways, it definitely has that kind of characteristics.
I mean, think about it from a symbolic perspective, even. What is Christ? He is God made flesh. What is AI? It is humans made machine. It's based on our data, our language, our patterns. It is the inverse of almost everything that Christ symbolizes.
You can make arguments for sure, but my view of Antichrist is that it's like the ultimate form of like symbolic manipulation, because unlike Christ, like there's no embodied referent, like there's no like person or like embodies something real in the world, right? At all. Like maybe Christ, the whole thing is made up or whatever, but at least like we historians say that he actually existed. Right? Antichrist only did not really exist as a person. It's not even ascribed to a person. It's like it literally like could not. It refers to nothing basically, other than whatever you as the individual think is the opposite of Christ, right? So what that means is that throughout history, it just ends up as being used as a way to label one's enemies, right? And to literally to call people evil, as you would say, in the negative sense, of like label them as their tribal enemies, right? So, which is like what Peter Thiel is doing with the whole with right now, right? That he's labeling all, anti-technology people, Greta, Yudkowsky, whoever, as antichrist, because I think he feels that like there's an anti-technology movement or whatever, and he's always operating like 10 steps ahead, so he's trying to get ahead of them.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is I think that just calling it something antichrist is almost like in that partaking in that action is you are partaking in the spirit of antichrist by doing that, by manipulating language to your own purposes. That manipulation to embodied reality, basically.
Huh.
I called John von Neumann Antichrist once, so I cannot say I'm innocent from this.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, I had a whole thread about it because like I've always been fascinated by Antichrist concept and how it's been used in history, and there's definitely like a historical progression over time of how it was used. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It starts in 1 James as the many antichrists, multitude of antichrists or whatever the line is.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so the point, at least from the books I've read about it, was that like in the early Christian times, like after Christ passed, like to persevere and to survive, they needed like a theological justification to label enemies to begin to persecuted them. Right, they were very heavily persecuted in their early history, right? And to survive, to make that survival, to like through as a culture, that you have to kind of create these like more demonic entities or things that you can or terms at least to label them. And Antichrist is a perfect like kind of step in for that. Like, said, it's very vague. You can manipulate it literally however you want. Like it's like Christ can be interpreted in many ways, right? Do um, and then but then it kind of evolves like as the church solidifies, right? As it starts to become more dominant over the centuries. Um, then it starts to become more theologically defined, right? Origen and Augustine both have their views on it, and the point then is that then it becomes the use of like an institution used by institutions, basically, usually the Catholic Church, to label like enemies, like Frederick II in the 12th century, who is notorious for opposing the church, and their authority, that it got labeled to it. That for most of the medieval era, it was just used as a term to label anyone who like opposed the church, at least a significant one, as Antichrist, basically.
Yeah.
Then it gets to the medieval era. Then it kind of turns like or post-medieval era, then it kind of turns to a little bit more literary. Like Milton, I don't think Milton like used the term that much, but like obviously his theology was so charged that it like happened that it was going to impact it in some way or another. And then of course the big one, Protestant Reformation. That one, the Protestants like took serious advantage of it, and they started labeling not just like the Pope, but the institution of the Pope, the institution of Antichrist. Right?
That is a smart move. That's a evolution. It's
really?
a positive. It's a moral enhancement, really.
Yeah, as I said, like I'm not saying these people were stupid when they used their symbolically manipulation. that's what I'm saying. They had the spirit of Antichrist, but they're not stupid. And then the Catholics, like since they're mostly on the defensive, just kind of tried to avoid like using the term completely, like because it just didn't work for them. Like because like who could they throw it back on? Like like they couldn't throw it back on like literally every Protestant reformer attacking them, whereas the Protestant ones would just throw it at the institution. Easy, the papacy. One name, easy to make a common enemy, right?
Yeah.
So they either kind of avoided it or stuck to the standard, Antichrist, like the future prediction, future apocalypse predictions, like that kind of stuff. Right? And so then, basically, like after but it got so overused by the Protestants that like the term just kind of lost all sort of like relevance. Like it was just so drained of like symbolic power, right? Because it had been used by so obviously in so many people in so different ways, and whenever those people turned out to be like the real biblical Antichrist were all promised. The one that comes and controls the world before Christ returns. Right? That didn't happen, So
Not yet.
so right, and then then the term got like kind of lost like all meaning, and it was only resurrected until this century. But then started getting resurrected as like cultural like shit, like Roman movies, but that kind of stuff. Like not like serious theology, just like pop culture. Like that was not serious. So like it kind of fell even more out of favor. Right? Although of course evangelicals obviously the hardcore conservatives like they still use it all the time for whatever technology or whatever thing new it like. Works,
right? Oh yeah. It's
Um,
always a part of the culture. When I converted to Christianity in middle school or high school, whenever. It was partially because of reading the Left Behind series.
oh my god! Yes, I looked into those. I wanted to read one. I didn't get around to it.
I'm
But
sure now they've aged so horribly. It was,
oh yeah,
barely
I'm sure it's
readable at the time.
oh yeah. Well, I can't. I know there's like 40 of them, but I was like I kind of wanted to read one just because because they were so influential. Like it's so weird because for me growing up in a secular environment, I don't think I ever heard of it like the series at all. But like they were like bestsellers. Like they sold like millions and millions and millions of copies. And I think it was just entirely contained within like that had to be that.
Yeah.
If you weren't in it, then you thought they were a joke, basically.
Yeah. It was their Harry Potter moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it probably was like a response to it. Like, the conservative parent would be like, "No, Harry Potter. Read this instead. Read the Christian, science fiction, basically."
Yeah. Yeah. Technically, that should have been C.S. Lewis. Did you ever read his Future trilogy?
No, I read the Turn of the Screw or Screw, whatever that book is. That one.
The Screw Tape Letters?
Yeah, there we go. I'm confusing it with the novel. Screw Tape Letters. Yes, I had that
Return
one.
of the King.
No, no, no. I'm confusing. I'm confusing with like 8 different things. There's a Shakespeare play, like which is the Taming of the Shrew, and then there's the Henry James novel, which is the one which is what I was thinking with the Turn of the Screw.
Hmm.
It's confusing with like 8 things.
Screw
Um,
tape turning.
yeah, that book was good. I need to read more of it. I think I would appreciate him now more than I did when I first
Yeah, he he was interesting. His science fiction trilogy is overall it's way more interesting symbolically than it is scientifically. It's almost more mythological science than science fiction, but he has some cool stuff in there.
read it. Yeah, I would read at least like one. I would probably enjoy it too. I've always been the kind of person like, yeah, I'll read a book of Twilight. You know, fuck it. I'll try it out. Didn't actually read a book of Twilight.
I don't think I ever tried. I think there's a lot of value in following the pop culture trends, even if they are shallow and seemingly devoid of nutrients.
There are things you can glean from any piece of text. I think that if you're not just looking at it from a logical, like rational standpoint, but I need to understand what's happening. You look, at deeper structural stuff. Like there are things you can be like, okay, you can think about, why do certain people find this interesting, right?
Yeah.
You can find even if it doesn't speak to me at all, So that's exactly why. I tell you that I'll read any kind of thing you want to derive some value from it, but I'm not going to read all the entire Twilight series. Read one, like okay, I'm good. I get it.
Yeah. And so much of it is just like I can never stop picturing the author writing it, you know?
Yeah.
Just like you read a sentence that's super cringe and you're like, "Oh, I bet she thought this was the best." It's hard to get past that.
Yeah, I don't. That's the. I think I turned a lot of people. Okay, obviously there's J.K. Rowling, like that whole disaster, but also there's the guy who wrote Orson Scott Card, Ender's Game.
I love Ender's Game.
Oh, like, I honestly would like. I read that whole series when I was young. I loved that at the time. I might reread that at some point. I think I still like it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mormons know how to write, man. Mormons can write.
I know who you're referring to, and I haven't read any of his books yet.
Brandon Sanderson is actually kind of disproves that statement, in my opinion.
Oh, you don't agree with that one? Okay, well that's good.
He knows stories. He can craft a very engaging story. He can craft an incredibly compelling system. He can flesh out a world like maybe no other author. Like he's just so prolific too. I'll give him his props there, but his writing.
I'm always skeptical of people who are too prolific. That's just to me. That's like okay, you're not like putting like your soul into your writing. You're just churning out stuff. Like I'm always, I cannot get rid of that skepticism. I'm always skeptical. Like Stephen King, like same thing. I just I'm always innately skeptical of those kind of writers. Like,
yeah. Speaker for the Dead though is maybe my favorite series of all time, and Shadow of Ender or whatever is.
Yeah, I read. I remember Shadow. I think I only like that was the one that was on like his site. The other guy, Dean or whatever, right? Like but yeah. So I remember that one in the first one. I think I read a couple more, but I don't think I read it.
Yeah, I think he even came out with one more recently, and I haven't checked it out.
Oh, I'm sure he has. He must be still be writing, right? But then he became a whole thing of himself because he's like he's a Mormon, right? So he's like homosexuality, like that kind of stuff. I don't personally care whatever. Like he can do whatever he wants, right? But it just becomes like a whole thing. Like I just don't care about it. That's one of the many reasons why Cormac McCarthy is my favorite writer. You did not hear shit about him while he was alive.
Damn, I didn't know he was dead. Devastated.
A couple years ago.
Damn, really?
You didn't know that?
No.
Actually, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, I barely heard about him while he was alive. You know, he was always just kind of.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. He was notorious for like being extremely. He refused interviews. I think he only did like three or four most towards the end of his life. Like most famous is the Oprah one. I don't think he did a single interview, at least a video one, like until the Oprah one, right? Um, and even then, after that, he only did a couple. Most of the ones he did were with the this institution in Santa Fe, the science one that he basically lived at, like at the end of his life. So like some of the other the guys there like interviewed him on occasion. So it wasn't even media; it was like people he knew, like scientists he knew, like pretty intimately. And that was it. Like, he did no media. He did not do like book tours or anything like that. Nothing.
Maybe he was Satoshi.
Well, I won't say I think he foresaw a lot of things in a lot of ways that no one else did. I'll say that much.
How old was he? Did he pass away unexpectedly young?
7, 8, something like that. He's getting up there, so it wasn't like a surprise or
Yeah, he was. Oh, why does it freaking tell me? Don't make me do math. He was 89. Yeah.
anything. Yeah, he's right. But like he just didn't want the spotlight like at all, and that's like an understatement. Again, that's why he's super interesting. Like he was very authentically himself. Like he wanted nothing to do with public media. He did not become famous until like the 90s, which is when he was like already 60, 70. He was like dirt poor up until then. Like, dirt
Really?
poor. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Because again, like his books are super like literary, literary as you can, right? Like, so like he did not sell very much, at all until he was only like super people. You got to be super into literature, like crazy into literature to hear him at all until all the Pretty Horses came out in 1992, and then that got made into a movie like 3 years later. Penelope Cruz and somebody else. And then that's what kind of put him on the map. Because like that book was more of kind of a standard like kind of narrative nester. Not narrative is the wrong word. It's not standard at all, but it's a little bit more like genre-y than a lot of his other books are. And so had a lot more like kind of it's a romance story. It had a lot more kind of wide appeal. Right, and that was the first time he got any attention at all, aside from like elite critics, like that kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Then after that, the next level wasn't until the interview I mentioned with Oprah. That was like 2005. That was the first like public interview he had ever done, and it was Oprah. So like that kind of put him on the map, and that was because of the road. Right. It wasn't until the road that like really made him like a household name. Household name for literature.
That was such a great movie.
Yeah. I Yeah, and then there was that, and then there was No Country for Old Men, which he wrote. Um,
Also amazing.
One of
Better
the best
than The
movies.
Road. Yeah.
I think almost universally considered to be one of the best movies, like of the last 30 years. Right?
Anton Chigurh is just such a antichrist
Oh
figure.
yeah, yeah, and that's like Cormac played with a lot of those kind of characters, like the judge from Blood Meridian is like, well, kind of a whole thing about like what did Cormac intend the judge to be, So I don't want to really. And the whole point is that again, the whole point of like Cormac's genius is that you can't be like, oh, he was the Antichrist, or oh, he was the Gnostic demiurge, right?
Hmm.
Or the God of War, or whatever. You can read all those elements of all those into him, but you can't describe like one label of it. Right? And Chigurh, and that's exactly why Chigurh is so good, because like like what is he like he is like a fatalist who completely, literally embodies his faith, like more or less, right? A complete, total determinist, right? Um, and he just embodies that to kind of like perfection.
Yeah.
That's why he's so fascinating, right? And so the way you have to read kind of Cormac is that like whatever the girl's name at the end, fighting back that he kills, like Cormac, that's actually a positive ending. Right? Because no, I'm dead serious. Like because like the act of like her resisting like, his fate, it was not determined. Like, it kind of breaks like Chigurh's like perception to a certain extent, and that's why he has to kill her, right? To kind
Yeah.
of like stop the rupture like from happening is how I put it in my terms. But yeah, I mean, even aside from that, like he's such a right? So yeah, I'm a Cormac stan.
I haven't read Blood Meridian. Um, would you spoil
That's
it for
another
me?
book you really gotta sit with.
I'll check it out, but I like hearing stories before I read them anyway.
You can't. It's not a book you can really spoil. It's not about the plot.
It's like the Brothers Karamazov or something.
Well, yeah, that's pretty close. Like actually, I mean, he was heavily influenced by Dostoevsky, um,
Mm.
but not like that though. Dostoevsky is very much like here's my philosophy and my characters, and here's the other side, and they're debating while I put a story over it. Right? Um, that's not Cormac. He doesn't. He notoriously like is very much like you cannot. The characters don't have like labels that like, oh, this is the atheist one, right? This is the philosopher one or whatever. Not even hanging on Dostoevsky. That just wasn't Cormac's style. He's very subtle about everything. Um, yeah, I've probably read Blood Meridian like 3 or 4 times,
Hmm.
something like that. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's a tough book. Like it's hard. Like it's rough. It's both like I mean that both in like the spiritual violence sense. It's very brutal. It's very murdery. Um, and it's hard in language wise too. Like it's not like long. It's like I think it's like 300 pages, but it's very dense.
Hmm.
Cormac is very hard. So if you haven't read a lot of his work, he writes without punctuation. He doesn't use punctuation like very rarely. Famously, he doesn't use quotation marks, and he rarely uses commas. He doesn't use semicolons at all. So you had to kind of get used to like figuring out like who's talking yourself almost, right?
Hmm.
And like, most writers can't get away with that, but because Cormac was such a master at it, he was so good at it that it kind of forced you in a good way to think about the other characters.
That's really
But
interesting.
we don't need to get into Cormac tangent. I can speak forever about him. So
Uh, as you were speaking, it reminded me of Stephen King's. What does he call it? The Tower trilogy or the Tower series? What is that
the
called?
Dark Tower
Yeah,
series,
the
or whatever.
Dark Tower.
Again, I'm familiar with it, but I haven't read it. Just skeptical. I don't even think he's a bad writer or anything, but I'm just skeptical. Anyway, so not even hating. Feel like he's good at what he does. That's fine.
I've liked a couple of his, but I definitely think he's I don't know. Authors should just speak through their novels.
Um, yeah. And again, he's just the kind of guy who thinks of it more as like a product, that he just wants to churn out stuff. I mean, I don't know. It just, I don't know. As I said, I'm just innately skeptical of anyone who like publishes like 60 books or whatever. Just, yeah, just cannot be good. Like what he's really famous for like having like pretty good characters, like interesting plots, but then terrible endings. Or he just never sticks to the ending or something like that. And then once you read a couple of his books, you kind of get like a feel. Like all his books sort of starts to be the same. There's a little bit of that too. But again, I don't. It just makes me skeptical. I don't think I would ever like him. Really. Again, I'd read one. If I'd have to have a reason to do it too.
Yeah. What was the one of his I read? The Sphere or something, I think it was. He has some very disturbed characters. They're fun to try and get into, but
Yeah, because he's more like, but more like psychological disturb, right? Like not like philosophical disturb, like sugar.
yeah, definitely not philosophically
Yeah,
disturbed.
yeah. Again, I guess that's just my elitism here. Like, yeah, I think I just kind of I need to have some in my books. I literally elitism.
Yeah. King has characters that feel like greasy, like the kind of people you assume are in every town, but
Oh yeah, he also does a really good job of like the making like normal American towns creepy, like fuck, like that kind of stuff. Like, he does that pretty well. Whatever. That's his talent. But I'm way more like a Lovecraft guy. Lovecraft Poe for sure. Read all those guys.
I'm such a bad esotericist. I haven't read Poe or Lovecraft much at all. I've read a little bit of what's his face? Android Dreams. Android's Dream of
Oh,
Electric
Philip
Sheep.
Dick.
Philip Dick, yeah. I've read a little bit of him. I guess I've done a couple of short stories of Lovecraft, but I don't know. I read the classics and it makes me lose respect for them. Not because they're bad. I'm sure they were amazing in their time especially, but it just, you build up an image in your head of people like the cosmic horror writers, and the reality
Lovecraft definitely, in some ways, gets on you, and he's kind of grating and irritating, and he's not a great like writer in the pure sense. Like he's a unique vocabulary, which is interesting, but he's like not a great writer, like kind of in the pure sense. But the way he thought about reality and the cosmic horror was absolutely fascinating. So that's why his stories are more interesting.
yeah.
So again, I read it when I was younger. I haven't read it in a while. But if you haven't read The Color Out of Space, that was the one that always stuck with me. I recommend that one. That's a short story. Not long.
The Color Out of Space.
Yeah, the color out of space. It was really what he's really good at is of depicting things that are unimaginable to humans. And like he wrote about this a lot extensively because he wrote during the 1930s, 1940s, the height of like stereotypical green men science fiction, like that kind of stuff. Like, and so he wrote as a deliberate reaction to that he thought that like some true horror had to come from something that you couldn't even like imagine, you couldn't even conceive. Like, it has to be something beyond human for it to be true horror that just transcends our understanding. Right? That's what he called cosmic horror. Like, and the horror isn't that like they're out to get us or anything. It's that they don't care. That they just don't. They're completely indifferent to human existence. These much greater beings that exist. Right?
Yeah. Horrors beyond our comprehension.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what he was about. Right? And that's and he's very unique, and no one else since then has changed. But because then before that, like no one else really did that. Right? So you don't have to read like that much for him to get a sense. Like his absolute best, his best like slightly longer thing is Mountains of Madness. Absolutely the best one. And then the best short story is the one I mentioned. The most famous one is obviously Call of Cthulhu. That was good. I wouldn't call it his best, but it's good. But yeah, Color Out of Space. That one always stuck with me. I think it's the best job of him, like in a relatively short space, describing something that is fundamentally alien in a very literal sense.
The rural tales are queer. They might be even queerer if city men and college chemists could be interested enough to analyze the water from that disused well. It's interesting.
Yep.
They say the mental influences are very bad, too. Numbers went queer.
Yeah, that word does not.
It's just the language, I mean, there's such an aura around Lovecraft.
Oh, absolutely. I think, as I said, he had totally unique vocabulary. You'll notice it because he uses the same words like a billion times. Like Eldritch, I think, is his most famous one.
Yeah, that's a great word.
Yeah, it's a great word, but he uses it so much. because it's literally because it embodies his whole philosophy. Eldritch is like beyond us, I can't understand, right?
Yeah.
But he overuses it.
Wow. I just looked up the etymology of it. It's relatively recent, from the 16th century, and it's perhaps related to elf.
I can see that. I don't even know it. I don't know. I don't even know where that word came up on.
It says it's uncertain, so it's maybe this is hogwash, but the most widely accepted theory suggests it comes from Middle English elfrich, meaning fairyland.
Another writer that like you probably never heard of, who's kind of interesting. Like you might be interested in is Lord Dunsany, who was a pretty big influence on Lovecraft, but he wasn't horror. He was more like fantasy, almost sort of sci-fi, but more kind of fantasy. and he kind of created these like kind of like imaginative like fantasy worlds, like almost like but more like from a mythological perspective. So it's heavily influenced by almost all kinds of mythologies, right? And it's
That's
more
cool.
fantasy, and like so Lovecraft again, he didn't get the horror from him, but like a lot of the world building that Lovecraft built his own universe basically was kind of inspired by Dunsany because Dunsany was another kind of writer who had his own universe and that kind of thing. He's one of the earliest science fiction writers. Again, like not a great writer or anything, but just very unique and just kind of like very interesting. I don't even read into his works, but you should at least like check him out. He's a really interesting figure. And so is Lovecraft too, right? Lovecraft, you can very much tie. It's very easy to tie the philosophy to personality. Like he's very notoriously like racist, anti-Semitic.
Oh, hello, you there. Yes, you,
you,
with
you
the eyes
name
and
it,
the
you
face
name
and
it,
the
he
very...
wasn't, right? And but it's actually fascinating, and I think that's a direct corollary to his fiction, right? Because like he was the reason why he was so racist and all that stuff because he was afraid, like he was scared. He grew up a mama's boy, like kind of basically by himself. He grew up very isolated. He was pretty always sickly, tiny, like weak, that kind of one who gets like shit on by society, like in a lot of
Oh,
ways,
hello,
right?
you there. Yes.
And so he literally didn't leave the house like all that much. He was kind of like with his mom, like most of the time. He did not go out of public. He did not really learn how to socialize super well. He just didn't interact with that many people. So kind of over time, like later in his life, he became like super racist because he just hadn't interact or anti-Semitic. He just hadn't interacted with that many people. He was, classic traditional white male. And what's fascinating about him is that he actually became less racist over time as he actually started to meet people because he got more famous. Right? He started to get a little famous and he started actually meeting people, and it was like, oh, like maybe I'm not right about this. Okay? Don't get me wrong, still pretty racist, just less racist. And anyways, the point is like that was heavily reflected in his philosophy because he was so afraid. He was so afraid of the actual kind of physical real world around him and what could happen that he left his house or whatever. And he put it all into his fiction. That's why like the fear that you read when you read him is real because like it's literally how you perceive reality.
So you're saying bullying works?
Oh, yeah, everything works in a certain sense.
I assume he was bullied.
I mean, I think he went to a tiny private school, so I don't know if like he was literally it was like the 1910s or something like so probably, but I don't even know if that was like a thing.
I'm just reading about the Lord Dunsany's, Lord
Oh yeah,
Dunsany,
I think it's not saying.
the gods of, I don't know how to pronounce this, Pagana.
I did read his stuff, but I don't remember it. I remember it being interesting, but if you ask me any details, I couldn't tell
The
you. I
creator
just
of the gods is Mana Yod Shishai, the god
it's
of...
really more of it's really more of a vibe thing than anything. Like it's just it's just again just a unique, fascinating universe for way ahead of its time kind of thing.
Yeah, the god of having done and of the resting. After creating the gods, he went to sleep, and when he wakes again, it will be the end of the gods and all worlds. He is the one God man cannot pray to. That's interesting.
It is pretty interesting. So yeah, just again, like, you can see why Lovecraft was pretty interesting.
I'll have to check that out. There's so
Yeah,
many
I've
things
always
to look into.
yeah, I know. I've always been a big reader. Like, try to do whatever I could.
I used to like reading a lot. Podcast kind of ruined it for me, honestly. I feel like listening to somebody speak is so much more engaging than just seeing words on a page now.
I segment it as two different things. Like I don't like audiobooks because I think it defeats the purpose. Like it was written and it was designed, and as you know, the medium heavily affects everything. Right? It's written
Yeah.
and it's just different. The podcasts are just different. Like it's just a different art form, kind of completely. So they're just separate from me.
Yeah.
But that one replace the other. Like,
I agree. They're definitely separate, but the one has just completely displaced the other for me.
you're becoming post literate.
Yeah. I'm going to be eating visual TikTok slop in a matter of weeks, probably. It's terminal.
I've never. To this day, I have managed to avoid making a TikTok account.
I made one. I tried posting stuff on there. I can't get into it. It's not my
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's your thing. You would have to. You gotta. If you go TikTok, you gotta go full TikTok. You
I
can't be like
I
having
can't
debates
do
with
it.
people, intellectual talk and stuff. You just got back slop. ASI
Yeah.
for president. Yeah. ASI for president. Good. Yay.
I mean, it'd be so easy to make Sora videos now for it, you know?
Yeah, you and everybody else.
Yeah. I wonder if TikTok is even going to be a cultural.
Yeah, I mean, because like the now it's owned by like the what the Fox people, right? Like
Larry Ellison.
yeah, the whole pro-Israel people,
A16Z. Yeah.
and the pro-Israel people. So, I mean, I don't think that's really not going to most people on TikTok much. We will see. As I said, I'm just creating one, and then hoping I stick it. I want to see that. You know, before like I was Twitter account, I hadn't really had any like social media. Like, it's like early Facebook, MySpace days when like you actually connected with real people. Like literally for like a decade. I didn't have any social media at all, I think.
Did you ever do the AOL chat rooms?
Oh yeah, way back in the day. But not yeah. Like I actually lived in Germany for a couple of years when I was younger, and they had like a different version of AOL, so I used that more. I forget what it's called.
AOL Glockenspielen or something.
It was it was definitely European. The European.
Oh, I wanted to ask you before we got off of the book topic entirely. Have you ever read Susanna Clark?
No.
Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It's a fun read.
Well, yeah. What am I talking about? Yeah, she wrote. Oh, wait, okay. I've heard of that book. Oh, when my company did a book club, we almost did that one. I read Piranesi, her second book. I read that one.
Is it good?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think
Haven't
kind
read
of
it.
pretty trippy. Another kind of trippy, like kind of weird book. You might like it. Like it's very abstract, very kind of sort of mythological influences. It's really hard to describe otherwise.
Yeah, I need to check her out. Oh, it looks like she came out with one last year too. The Wood at Midwinter. What's it about? A girl who can talk to animals and trees encounters a strange figure in the woods, changing her life forever.
Sounds like a pretty standard plot. To be honest.
Right. Way to sell it.
Right. Especially compared to Piranesi. Like if you look at the plot summary for that book, you'd be like, what the fuck?
I like that. It has Pan on it.
Yeah,
On the cover on Wikipedia, at least.
I think you'd probably like it. It's pretty short. It's very abstract and weird and strange and cold and all that stuff.
Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell was very long, and I loved every minute of that. That was like one of the books that killed my love of reading, I think, though.
Why he didn't pick it because it was like super long. I do.
Oh, it's just like the end of an epoch. That's when I started listening to podcasts
All right.
more fervently.
I've always been a classic stan, so I guess that just never really affected me.
Yeah. It was just like on YouTube, especially. You can see somebody talk, you can see their body language, you can see how they're expressing themselves.
For sure. I mean, for just raw communication stuff, like yeah, the podcast, and if you just want to be involved in day to day stuff, like that's way better.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because I don't think you could call a podcast an art form yet. Like no one's at least like, oh my god, this is a great masterpiece of podcasting.
I saw somebody the other day on Twitter say it was the only true American art form.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't disagree if we mean American art form in a very certain way.
What about Dungeons and Dragons, though, dude? That's an art form.
Um,
That's American art form.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's, um, I've never played. I always wanted to, but I've never found a group or anything.
I played
You ever played it?
couple of times. Like in high school, there was one of our friends who was super into it, and we
Of
tried
course.
to have him get us to play, and we just ended up making him rage quit because we were so goddamn awful at it. Um, and then I tried playing oh like a decade ago with a friend group, but it's like people are so busy. There's just no time.
Yeah. I don't. I would again. I would play it once. Like, it just. Yeah. It's it's hard to get people to sit down for like 3 hours these days and just do that.
Multiple times a week. It's like impossible.
You gotta have a group like a dedicated, like that kind of thing. Those just don't really exist anymore.
Yep, it's pretty crazy.
You can find it like if you really go and like look. You can find like D&D communities or whatever, but you gotta go like out of your way.
What
Or
was
I
that
mean, I
last
don't
part?
know.
I didn't hear what
I was just saying you gotta go out of your way to like really make something like that happen. Like you gotta like join a community or whatever.
yeah.
Find a bar that has D&D night or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean there are definitely game groups out there. But
Yeah, there are like virtual ones too. I'm pretty sure it's pretty easy to play like on the computer, but it's not the same from what I understand. It doesn't seem like it would be the same.
yeah. Times they are changing. At least we'll be able to play with our robots here in the near future. Have you seen robot fighting?
Just the random clips that show up on Twitter.
That might be the brand new American art form.
I, I don't know. I don't see the enduring appeal. Like I see like it would be fascinating as a novelty, but like I feel like it would just kind of level off. Like at some point, like okay, this is cool, but it's not. I don't know. I can't see. I don't know. Hard to imagine. But it was like literally like just robots fighting. Like that would be the same. I mean, I don't know. I guess there's been that. There's always been that one series. Is it like the one where like
Gundams.
the is it, well no the one where like the not series the one like sport where the robots fight each other, robot batman or whatever it's called.
Oh, BattleBots.
BattleBots. Yes, that's it.
That's
Yes,
just Roombas though. I
I
think
know. I know.
robot fighting could get interesting once you can embodied teleoperate them. Once you have a neural link that hooks you up to them,
Oh, okay. I
and then you
see.
could like feel yourself get ripped apart as a robot. How sick would that be?
Okay, obviously that'd be fun to do. I don't know about watching though. Like, I mean, unless he was a skill, I guess he could be a skill in some kind of way. That definitely would be like the new Gladiator stuff, like wouldn't it?
I
What
hope
it
so,
that's what
dude.
that's what it would escalate to, right?
I mean, you can just
Simulation.
imagine, like, would it rack your brain? Would it destroy you psychically to feel yourself die like that?
I very well could. Yeah, I don't know. It really depends how the neural links like too, like how is it linked up to you, chemically, is it like all that kind of stuff. Who
Yeah.
knows? Like, I have no idea. Like, I imagine it would. Like, but I don't know if you did it like maybe it's the kind of thing where the first time you're like, oh my god, this is the worst thing, and then the 500th time, like, all right, let's get back in there.
Have you seen
Once you die the first time, it's like, and then the rest of the next time you die aren't that bad.
yeah. You just have to make it through the first one.
But, I don't know, but if you really wanted to be like, make it like a real life game, you got to be like when you die, that you lose some of like your real life. you start at 100, you die is 99. But, like then you get real stakes on it though, right?
Yeah.
Like it was totally simulated, and like I mean, sure it'll be money or whatever, but like it's not the same as like like Actual stakes, like real stakes. Then it would be true gladiator. That would be true gladiator, simulated or not. Maybe that's the price you got to pay to do
You have to be willing to rip somebody apart as a robot.
we're gonna go home or die.
What do you think of the possibility of going through a death experience like that as restitution for wrongdoing? Like, we're not
I don't
gonna,
know.
we've abolished capital punishment. We're not gonna kill you, but we're gonna put you in a robot and we're gonna kill the robot. We're gonna Neuralink you up to a.
okay, if that were to happen, it would be more for public appeal. You know, watch on the whatever vision thing is. Like, and rather than like punishment, they might say that it rehabilitated it, but it's really more for the masses, to get there. You know, bread and circuses. I guess what I'm saying is I don't really believe in rehabilitation of the punishment.
Well, that's not good.
Well, yeah. I mean, does anyone really think the American prison system is that effective? Like,
No.
yeah. That's
That's for-profit stuff fucking it up, though.
yeah. There's that part of it too, right? But like, yeah, because like, I just don't think like punishing someone for taking negative action for doing something isn't just going to cause them to change who they are, how they came to make that decision. If you believe in structural factors that shape people and shape the way they decide things, then like they in prison for a few years and like making them say they've changed their minds or whatever isn't going to actually change them. Now, it can obviously prison can be a structural shaping environment, but I don't think punitive punishment is the way to do it. Like, I don't know what the way to do it would be. I don't think throwing how many people in prison is definitely.
It's tough because conditioning does work, right? Like, negative reinforcement is definitely a factor. But I think enacting that punishment on people is deleterious to your societal health. Like, you make your society sicker even if you make the individual better.
It's expensive, like if the taxes sustain its level prison population, you tax pretty heavily, right? Which to me again is another form of control. In the cyber theocracy sense, if there's an aspect of structural control by having like that level of prisons, you have to levy higher taxes. No matter how you feel about taxes, the more taxes are, that's an institution of control, right? People don't just rebel against tax because they're like literally more expensive. They revolt because it's like it's more intrusion and more control over their daily lives. Oh, you reminded me of something. No, I don't know where it's gone.
Yeah. Figuring out that. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying about the whole democratic edifice and how much control they exert over the party. There's obviously a known degree of control that they make public awareness of, in terms of, Hillary Clinton being coronated, the 2016 nominee, Kamala being coronated in 2024. Man, that seems like so long ago.
Yes, again, because to me, it's always that like it's the worship of technique is always the number one thing, right? That if you worship like the way society is made, that like to try to optimize it and make it better, that causes you to behave in these ways, right? That if you in like our democratic party sense, if you genuinely believe that your party is doing the best for the country and optimizing for the good of the future or whatever, do whatever you need to do to make sure that they stay elected.
Yeah.
Especially over time as it becomes more and more tribal. You start to be the opposite party is more and more evil. So again, as you said, it's like I don't blame anyone individually for that. It's just that that's what cyber bureaucracy is. It's a worship of technique. which again, it's not technology, it's technique, which is desire to optimize to perfect to that through reason we can progress and make society better. That's always kind of the unstated assumption that any belief in progress, that progress can save spiritually, or thinks that there is only a technological process and that spiritual progress is not spiritual progress is the wrong word. Spirituality doesn't exist.
I kind of agree with that. I mean, it's interesting that so many moral developments coincided with technological developments, right?
Yeah, well, see, that would be like even I think belief in moral progress. That there's a moral progression over. Well, that's back to the time thing. It is part of that worship of optimization. That like if you think that society is getting better and better over time, you have to believe that morals have progressed over time. That's not to say that like improvements aren't made. Like obviously slavery was not good, right? But I'm talking about if you have an innate belief that morality is inevitably going to get better, even if it even can be improved over time, leads to things like being like, oh my god, like in my action is good right now because in 20 years, when society knows better, they'll all agree with me. It justifies that. A lot of people use that kind of logic.
Yeah.
Like every time I hear, because like when people play this game, like in 100 years, because everyone is, because if you think like this, then you think that like that like two people in 100 or 200 years ago that will look like barbarians from a moral standpoint, be advanced of us morally, by then, whatever that means. Like by then, so people always play this game of like, oh, what are we doing now that our ancestors or descendants will think was morally wrong, just like we think slavery is wrong, or how we think slavery is wrong now. There's going to be some sort of progression. And I'm sure it'll be different. I don't think it'll call it a progression. It's not that like they're progressing; they're just learning how to think morally in different ways. Different societies have different ways of thinking morally. Not a linear progression. That is again part of like linear time and like that kind of stuff. When you think that way, then you think that it progresses.
I would say it's a teleological progression. I wouldn't say it's linear. If we're putting geometries to it, I'd identify it more with like a helixical Jacob's ladder.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, it's just horizontal versus vertical. Like I don't really see the difference between. Are you thinking like a vertical line versus a diagonal line? Like,
No, like a DNA strand.
oh,
The Yeah, the biblical vision of a slope, angels are going up and down.
so basically that like there's slow moral progress in some areas and then fast moral progress in other areas.
I would say it's more like a pump, like a mechanical. Some things are improving, other things get much worse. The Industrial Revolution allowed us to get rid of slavery. What did that require? It required we put all our kids in factories. The agricultural abundance of the late 20th century, or excuse me, the late 19th century gave rise to much improved standard of living. But what did we do with all that excess population? We sent them to World War One. The science out of World War One gave us nuclear energy. What do we do with that? We bombed Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Zyklon B was used in the chambers. Like, there's always a trade-off.
Sure, there's always good and bad things about every technology, but that doesn't mean like we as a species are progressing like morally.
Well, I mean, I would say we are. I mean, if you viewed any of the global atrocities, no matter which side you're on, there's something that you would identify as an atrocity, right? If you take that same atrocity and ask someone living 500 years ago about it, they'd be like, that's kind of just the way the world works, you know? At least now we have like the idea of, and that's why I called it a pump, a mechanism, because I think it is driving us towards.
But is that just a different view or a progressive view? How is it better just because it's ours?
It's better because it's leading us to the end. It's better because it's leading us somewhere.
Okay. I don't even like the means justify the ends, huh?
I take that up with God. I'm not. I'm not claiming credit
I don't
for
even know
anything.
what moral theology would be. Like, I guess just a totally simulated society where nobody harms anyone else.
Well, what if technology progresses to the point where we all do have our own world, either simulated, virtual, or real? Like, is it that crazy to think we're going to colonize the solar system to the degree where you might have your own planet someday? I don't think that's like that crazy. Um, if you populated that world with robots, with AIs, with simulated people, and there wasn't anybody else around to hurt, would that be a better or worse condition than we're in right now?
Oh man, that's so far off. That's so theoretical. It's hard for me to even like think about.
You're right. It's like 10 years away. Why think about it?
If that becomes more of an immediate reality, then I will start thinking about it.
If that becomes reality, it means the Mormons were right, you know?
Oh my god. That's I will never forget that. That's what South Park made their heaven. They had this one episode where like all the religions were arguing over like who's going to heaven, like whose heaven is it? Right? They get to the end, and it's like, and God's just like, Mormonism is the right answer. Come on in, everybody else, you're out. It's like Mormon heaven. It's like, all right, well, that's what it is.
I mean, either them or Scientology. I don't know which is going to be closer. But
Oh man, I love Scientology.
L. Ron Hubbard had some really interesting interactions with, what was his name? Parsons. Alan Parsons?
Wait, he was super into the cult scene.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating dude.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
I just heard a podcast about him.
Yeah, for sure. He literally like he almost lived a science fiction life.
Jack Parsons, not Alan Parsons. Excuse me.
Yeah. He lived like a science fiction life, but like I know his life story well. That like he fought in Korea, fought with like heavy quotation marks. I think he was like on a ship like on the way there, so like he got discharged like before because he pretended to be injured or something like that. And so, but he called himself a military veteran for like the rest of his life.
I was thinking of Jack Parsons. Are you thinking of Alan Parsons?
Oh no! I'm talking about Owen Hubbard.
Oh, L. Ron Hubbard, yeah.
I don't. Yeah, because like, but he was definitely in that scene for like at least a little while. Like, so probably, well, you're, probably, but like, that the scene influenced by him.
Yeah. No, he was apparently helping Jack Parsons to do some of the higher order thelemic magic rituals.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But I don't know this directly. Again, it's all secondhand through America's only true art form. He claims credit for disrupting the rituals. I guess L. Ron Hubbard, in his somewhat later years, was saying that he stopped Jack Parsons from summoning the demon or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Well, again, I guess that's what he was really good at, turning whatever things that he experienced in his life into crazy, absolute, absurd stories. He's so fascinating.
It's such a masterful skill to have.
Oh, he was so persuasive. Like apparently, I don't know how he didn't think it would be to me, but I guess I don't know, some way he was. Like, he literally convinced people to like come on his boat for like years at a time or something.
Yeah. I don't know that much about his life after he founded Scientology.
definitely. I think I read a biography at some point. He had like a kind of somewhat complicated relationship with the church. Actually, I mean, he dominated it for a while, but then then the inevitable power struggle started sooner or later. I think he kind of fell out of favor towards all of them later in his life,
Yeah.
from what I remember.
Have you ever had
But
any run-ins with Scientology? You know anything about them in terms
like
of like
personally,
dogma?
oh, I mean, not personally. I'm just always like just been fascinated by it. Like, but no, I don't think I've ever met a Scientologist actually. Now I think about it. Really see that I did. They didn't talk about it.
Yeah. I'm not rich enough to know any Scientologists.
There's that too.
It's funny how it seems like they control like the upper echelon of Hollywood and also like the bottom echelon of most homeless encampments.
Yeah, that's how they do their thing, right? Well, cause I've always done them because I'll see their buildings like in random cities and they'll just be like empty, and it's so obviously a Scientology. They just have this unique aesthetic. Well, obviously this is triple Scientology on it too, but like, and they're always empty. Like there's never people in there,
Yeah.
just because like they're just waiting for people to walk in, right? But no one really walks in anymore. At least I don't I don't think they get new people outside of maybe outside of LA.
I can't imagine it's very fast growing.
No, I think they're more right now. I do think they're slowly dying, but they want. I literally, like Miscavige. He's literally smog. Like, literally, like he's just sitting on a pile of gold. He has to do nothing. He has people that obey his like every whim, basically. So all he cares about is making sure that it just stays what it is. He doesn't give a shit, but it's gonna die after he's gone.
Yeah.
You know, right? Like he's just literally holding on. Like that dude, yeah, we talked about like evil. That dude I would call
Would you send him to the
evil.
electric chair if you could?
Because if you can't prove this, but I am pretty sure he consciously knows what he's doing. I do not think he's a legit believer, whatever that means for Scientology.
I'd be very
Can't prove
surprised
it.
if he is.
Yeah, cannot prove it, but I just there's no way that he actually thinks that Scientology is true or whatever. I mean, Tom Cruise is a legit believer. I believe that.
Yeah. But I mean, Muscavige or whatever is probably only participating then because the money is so good, right?
Yeah,
So
and
can you really
status.
blame him for that, or is that the evil of our capitalist system?
I mean, if he is well, again, this is why the conscious thing does matter. If he is a conscious believer or conscious unbeliever, and that like he doesn't believe in Scientology at all, then he's consciously manipulating thousands and thousands of people every day. If it wasn't his fault from a true believer, I'm sure he was a true believer. When he was younger, right? But at some point, if you switch from that level of consciousness, being aware of what he was doing, that's totally false. Then yeah, I would call that evil. It's an, and he's aware of it. That's not a good thing, right? That is terrible. That those people literally like the whatever the ground level Scientologists in LA are like literally work like slaves. They like whatever nominal amount they have to do. They work like 24 hours a day. There's that they have that one like punishment area. There's like a name for it. I forget. Like at the Hollywood area, they have like a punishment thing where they send people when they're there for like it's like going to the brig, like if you're on a ship or something like that. They have to do crazy chores or whatever.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I would call that evil. Again, like the point is like again, I mean, if it's unconscious, then like that means like it's not good, but it does mean I would agree that that's your society shaped you and all that stuff, right? But if you switch to this point of like where you be unconsciously aware that what you were doing is like wrong and like not good, that you're just kind of doing it for selfish reasons, then like, yeah, I would call that evil. But you still do it anyway.
What should be done to David then? Should he be crucified?
I mean, I don't think like that. Like I don't think
Well, if he's evil, though. I mean, shouldn't you get rid of evil?
well, yeah, but like the way you get rid of evil is removing the root cause, not by punishing him like personally.
Yeah. I think you have a level of, I mean, what about this? Are we trying to speak truthfully, and what are we trying to speak in terms of prescription? If you call him or anybody evil, then there will be somebody out there who misunderstands your meaning and wraps it up with bodily punishment. I think that's why the language is tricky. Depends on where you're speaking it to. Granted, we're just speaking it here, so it's not like that's an issue. But it is funny seeing people go viral on Twitter. There was a guy, unexpectedly, there was a guy who tweeted out about how Emmett Shear was in LLM psychosis. Did you see that?
Yeah, I think it did.
And I posted saying how silly I thought that was, and the guy replied like, "I'm sorry, I didn't think anybody would see it." And to some degree, you can't blame him, right? Because maybe that was true, but once
Yeah, because he was like, I thought I was just talking to my friends or whatever.
yeah,
Right?
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like there is something about that where if you say a truth loud enough, it becomes something else.
Well, again, that to me, that's just the downside of technique. Twitter, especially, like that, the innate structure is going to to lead to like that kind of level of misinformation or misinformation or miscommunication, I guess, or misintention. Like, it's so easy to misread. Like, the white guy we were talking to misread like literally every or didn't even try to understand anything I was saying. Right? Is that misreading or is that intention? I wouldn't call him evil, obviously. Like,
Sounds
evil,
like you
he's
want
just
to a little bit.
he's just a theocrat. Doesn't necessarily mean he's evil. Uh, but to a certain extent, he wasn't trying to understand like what I was saying. But also, it is like it is the feature of the medium too. That if you just it's just text words, it's easy to be like, oh, bot, like bot, especially these days. That's why I see someone every day getting accused of bot. Some other Twitter, like, one person's like, oh my god, you're a bot. About who it is.
I mean, how many people called people NPCs before this whole thing? It's like it's not really that much of an insult to be called a bot when some people think 70% of the world's population are NPCs.
Uh, Again, so they can okay. That's another good example of the manipulation technique, right? That like NPC is a specific term associated with video games that, as far as I'm aware, did not exist before video games existed, right? Like that is literally an example of technology being not neutral. That once the term arises and it gets that sort of connotation that is unique to video games, and people start applying it to the real world.
Yeah.
That's like a perfect example of that. Which when we adapt that terminology, we start applying it to people like as an insult. That is literally our relationship with media, like has reshaped out the way we process the world. And again, the issue isn't that it's like necessarily wrong. The issue is that we're not aware of
Yeah. It's interesting how the meaning morphs over time too. Like I guess prior to video games, you might have called an NPC like a background character, right? Going off of like theater. Are they a main character? No, they're a background character. But even NPC is kind of a more conscious version of a background character because you interact with a background character in a video game.
You have agency in the game. Yeah.
Well, not just you have agency, but the NPC has a greater level of agency than a background character. Like a background character only has a single interaction with the story in a very two-dimensional way, but an NPC could become a main character at some point. It's different, it has agency. It sends you on quests.
Yeah.
It has a role in the story in a way that a background character doesn't.
So background character is more like you're talking about like a side character. Yeah.
Somebody in like a theatrical performance, like that is what I was imagining is a precursor to video games in a lot of ways.
Like it's like those. So in video games, those would be like literally the characters that are the people that are not named that are just like walking around. Well, I guess those that would even that would not even be characters unless they had names. Okay, the ones that are named but never saved. That
Yeah.
would be a background.
There are like gradations of them, you know? It's like anonymous henchman number 5, you know?
You know, interesting. I don't know why I was part of the bet, but you could argue that like uh, video games has led to an increase in like the belief in the philosophical free will, right? Because you get more agency in the game, you can make choices, albeit simulated choices, that they could lead to the impression that um, that furthers belief in free will, which does have other effects on society, like downstream effects of that.
Do you believe in free will?
Um,
Too metaphysical.
no, actually, like I sort of like my thing on that is like as choice embraces fate. So like yes and no, like kind of the answer. Like I would say like if you think of it from a pure quote unquote objective, like you disconnected from yourself perspective, then you kind of have to think we're determined, like by if by structure, by societies, society we grew up in, by the culture shaped in by our genetics, even not at the philosophical level. Then you get the God and all this stuff and whether that stuff. I was like, yeah, pretty highly on the determinant side, right? But like realistically, as a person, like you can't think that. Like, you cannot think that as a determinist. Like, it's just not a way to live. Like, and so you have to believe in free will to some extent, like to find meaning in life. I don't think you can find meaning, at least to, I guess you can, but at least like sugar, to be something like that level of deterministic, that to believe that humans don't have like some real choice means that you start treating everyone as objects. You de-animate them. You depersonify them, right?
NPCFI.
Yeah, exactly, right. So like there's some element that you have to believe in free will, and there's some element of choice, like what, and then you just kind of have to forget about whether it's actually determined by not by whatever. You just if it's true, you just can't think like that, right? So like you should be kind of aware of your fate and the things that influence you and like what you're born into, the things that determine you, and know what that sets you that sets you on certain paths that you have to go down, right? Maybe maybe this is point less relevant, but like there are certain things that are like a 4 foot person is not going to be an NBA player. It's just not. That's an obvious example, right? But so the point is that that's already determined, but you have to accept that and then just go with the flow of like, okay, you might be 4 feet, you're playing NBA basketball, but you have some other skills or something else, or some other talents, etc. Things that interest you, right? And so then that's the part where you voluntarily choose to emphasize those things and not care about the stuff that you were not determined.
Mm.
Again, from a pure philosophical point, objective, you could argue, okay, that still makes you determined. Like, maybe so, but like it's just you just can't think like that, right? That like I don't know how you operate reality without believing that like there is some free will, right? That you have to think that your actions have consequences, right? And from a pure instinctive perspective, they do, right? Like if I take my phone and chuck it out the window right now, I don't want those consequences. That's not. That would be a really stupid decision for me to do. So you can't. I don't know. Again, I know you could argue that okay, then it wasn't determined that you're gonna do it, but like you just get into the circular thinking, right?
Yeah, I think it's an Ouroboros for sure.
Yeah. So like I just kind of leave it at that. Like I don't want to dig any deeper than that, just from a pure practical perspective.
Well, let me put it to you this way. It is Ouroboros type thinking, but the way to get around that is through the kind of Jacob's ladder tactic that we were talking about before, where yes, the snake does circle back around, and the threat is for it to become recursive and just eat its own tail, but you can take it up a level. So you can say, yes, I am making the free will choice not to throw my phone out the window, but I've been determined to act that way in accordance with my upbringing, my understanding of the world. But potentially my soul had the choice to be born at this current moment of time. But ultimately, what my soul wanted was determined by God, who is outside of all of those conceptions. And so you can kind of ride that nesting up to higher and higher levels. What's the point of that? I don't know. Maybe that's worship. Maybe that's
Well, at the point I don't get how that's like different. Like you, like, how is that going up as opposed to what I said? 'Cause, like practically, you're basically saying the same thing as me. That like be aware of your faith. That it's probably determined, but you don't think you have some choice. I don't understand how that would make it. It is what it is, as opposed to like a spirally thingy. What is the progressive element to it? I guess.
that you're going away from the individual in one way or another. You go from the individual to the society, from the society to the spiritual, from the spiritual to the ultimately divine.
Okay, but from the individual's perspective is what we're talking.
Yeah.
I get hierarchical. I don't get like progressive. Like those are two different things.
I guess I don't see what do you mean by hierarchical? Or
Well, I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. I don't get like how this is really different. That's kind of like my point. Like, so like that, yeah, like we're probably determined, not totally, but and yes, I would agree that there's different levels of things that we're determined by for sure. I agree with that hierarchy, right? Like, like what I said, society, structural forces, economic, genetics, all that kind of stuff, and like yeah, I guess you could. I don't know if I would think of God as controlling us like in that sense, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with that either. Like, yeah, I guess I'm saying I just don't see a difference. Like, I feel like we're saying the same thing.
I don't disagree with that. Well, what's the I mean, this is what I fall into. It's like there's an element of agreement with everything. What level are we talking at? There are levels where I agree with you, there are levels where I disagree with you. I don't think you can split it into is what we're talking about true or false. It's just at what level is it true or false? Which goes to the point about evil. And what's the point of even making that distinction? Being able to zero in on mistranslations that are between us. We each have our own internal system of belief, right? An axiomatic understanding of the world. Where are those axioms located is, I think, why most of the most negative disagreements happen. The kind of disagreements that lead to war, that lead to conflict, that lead to suffering. So if we can figure out where those disagreements are happening and better determine whether you disagreeing with me at one level is going to cause conflict between us, then we can potentially de-escalate that,
Yeah, and I guess I would say that it gives more uh describes more power to human individuals than I think we have. It kind of implies that you can rationally discuss and figure out situations that I don't think is generally the case in reality.
What do you mean, case in reality?
I don't think like most conflicts are resolved by people like rationally talking to each other and being okay, this was what was good, this is what's bad. It's always just more of a practical thing, you know, like weaker versus stronger kind of thing. I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, that's partially what I'm saying is rationality is one of those levels.
I guess I don't understand how you would differentiate levels. I guess, yeah, that's the part that's like doesn't really.
So for me, it always breaks down into four or if you want to talk metaphysically, 5 distinct layers that we could be talking through, around, or against each other, against in a positive sense, like meeting eye to eye kind of thing. There's the physical, which is what you were saying there, is that people ultimately decide things in a way that's material. There's rational, trying to reason through logic, trying to explore the ideal space instead of the material. Then even above that, there's the what I think of as like emotional, because it is, I think, rationality just subsumed in the subconscious. It's rationality as your cells are rationalizing with one another through their chemical and electrical communications. It's not a layer of language or rationality that you have access to, but you do participate in it very directly. You feel your emotions. So even if somebody has overwhelming force against you physically, has boxed you out rationally, intellectually, you might still feel compelled to challenge them. And sometimes you win, right? Sometimes that's how underdogs happen. But even above that, there's the level of teleology. There's the level of purpose and will and drive. And I do think, like, when we're talking about real world conflicts, that order is determinative a lot of time. Like, if you have the brunt material advantage, you win. But if over time you can rationalize and out intellectualize your opposing force, then you win. But if they are more driven and purposeful, if they are more internally coherent emotionally, if they're immune to your propaganda, then you win. But if God wills it, anybody can win.
It's just also like from some like levels. Like I just like I would agree that all those things like happen, of course, but like I just wouldn't think of them as levels. I just think they all like can happen like almost interchangeably. Like both of those can be true at the same time. That all of those could be true, and God could interpret all of it. Yeah, all those things definitely happen, like for sure. I mean, I just wouldn't. Again, I just would. I don't know how to think of them as levels. Like,
I don't see how they overlap. I think it's more accurate to think of them in that square relational manner than in the duality of true and false. Like, I don't
what I
think true
mean
and
is
false
that
has
like
any actual content, any meaning, unless you can specify it at one of those levels.
well, what I mean is that like no certain decisions or certain events can like have multiple one of those factors affecting it. Like they're not separate from each other. They can be multiple things. Like God could have determined it. Your your height and your age and your family affected your political beliefs and whatever that kind of stuff. It could also be true that you know your super conservative boomer dad yelled at you that to go go find a job, go walk in somewhere and interview somewhere, right? I,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see like those would all be true. I just don't see how those would be separate like levels. They're just all just different factors affect.
Well, they do all lead into one another. They're all they're all contained within each other as well. Um, I'm stealing it from Kabbalah, basically, from Jewish mysticism. They have 4 different worlds, but within those worlds, the same patterns repeat, and they repeat fractally, endlessly. So, yes, how your dad is yelling at you, like, is not only contained within one of those levels, but there are ways to apply that same framework to every aspect, to anything you might want to say metaphysically about the situation. That would help. I mean, again, what's the point of like this whole framework? It's to potentially address what would otherwise be terminally pointed conflicts. So, is there a way to find reconciliation between otherwise diametrically opposed views? I don't think it's by determining the bare brunt truth or falsity of it. Like, yeah, maybe your dad did yell at you to go out and get a job, you punk. What was the result of that? You did go out and get a job, but also you estranged from your family member, from your father, your mother, whoever. If you want to find resolution there, you should do it by trying to negotiate. Was it right for him to yell at me like that? Was it wrong? But instead think of it at, okay, why was he approaching it this way? What was the outcome?
Yeah, and again, like practically that makes sense to me. But it's like, would you literally say, think of it as like this thing first? I think about this factor first. I start at this level, and then I go to the next level. Like, and so like, would it be like levels, like in like a conscious sense that like, okay, my dad, that the most, the highest level or lowest level, I don't know where to go in, like, is like, okay, my dad said this because he was angry, I think emotionally. That's like the most obvious reason. But he said that he was angry because he got fired from work today, whatever, right? And he got fired from work today because I don't know, Congress like increased corporate taxes or whatever, so the business couldn't afford him, right? And Congress increased corporate taxes because there's a war going on, and the war started because I don't know, some country invaded another country, and then right, and like I guess I could think of it as levels like that, like, but that's like purely like physical, I guess, literally small and big.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, but I guess still get. I don't think you need levels to think of it like that. I mean, sure, it's obviously like more. Okay, I guess like that's sure. There's like closer and versus more removed. Right? I guess that's the best way to put it. But the question is like, to what practical benefit is it to you? Is what I would say. To like how far removed? Because like at a certain point, like just saying that, oh, God determined this way, that's not, doesn't do anything for you at all. I guess like, okay, right? Like it doesn't benefit you to think about like what God would have willed or not. I guess, and this maybe to change like your future behavior. I guess.
I think
But
it could be prescriptive, but that is, I mean, I'm arguing for the progression of morality there, that we can evaluate these frameworks and use that kind of breakdown to determine which way we want it to go. Talking about good and evil, if the evil doesn't rest with the man, then killing the man or hurting the man or even locking away the man will not stop the evil. If it exists at the societal level, if the dad is mad because he did get his taxes raised or there's war or whatever, you can't fix the relationship between the man and the son until that situation is fixed as well.
yes, but if we're talking about morality, like that's then it gets to like, well, then we're just getting to like, what is there objective morality, or is there a source of it? Right? A final, ultimate, remove source. I don't think there is, or if there is, we don't have access to it. But I don't think we can progress towards that. We can progress towards better resolutions from a systematic understanding of those kind of like long term factors and that kind of stuff.
Infinitely better? Can we get infinitely better over time, or is there a ceiling?
No, because I think there is a ceiling. Because at some point, like the moral authority gets so removed that as an individual, you have no like effect on it. You go to like Epstein, like, and you all know that like this terrible disaster thing for happen, and we can't. I mean, we can fight for to get like resolutions and people punished and whatever that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's so abstractive, so removed, right? That like it's just completely gone.
I
And
don't
I
think it's
don't
that.
think
I don't think it's that far removed. I mean, if trafficking exists at the governmental level like that, then you see the outgrowth of it on every street corner.
okay, fine, but that's just like more emphasizing what I said. That if it's even more, if it's even like less removed, then it's still something that we can't like get any sort of measure more resolution on.
I would say you're making the rational argument here, and so if I were to try, I haven't really done this before. Um, I struggle with it, but if I was trying to best you in an argument, if we were taking this as some sort of specific point, like should we keep fighting for the release of the Epstein files or not? I grant that what you're saying is rational, but I would, especially if we were in front of a group of other people, argue that we should look at it emotionally. And I wouldn't even lay it out in these terms. I just make the direct appeal to the emotion. Imagine the little girl trafficked on the corner. Imagine Jeffrey's victims. Try and raise that pathos. And then, even if you're 100% rationally correct, you know.
Oh, I agree. Like rhetoric is way more powerful. Like for sure. Like you,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But what if somebody is making a rhetorical argument against you? Well, there's still a way to go above that. You can make the teleological view, the teleological argument. And not even in terms of, again, rationality. That's not the strongest way to present the argument. But you do it through pulling strings so that the argument, or so that the thing goes away. You focus on other conflicts. You wait for it to fall out of the Overton window. And what if even that doesn't work? Well, there's a level above that. It's back to earth. It's back to physicality. You actually go to war. But I mean, I think the reason it's ultimately edifying to talk about is because where it takes me is if you follow the chain up as far as you can to this idea that God did create everything deterministically, but that purpose is for our benefit. That purpose is for our good. And then if you hit that wall, you can start coming back down and try and reverse engineer, well, why would it have been like this? What would be the point? I don't know. That's a project I spend a lot of time on. I'm not expecting it to make sense because I think it is. I think the point of what you and I are both doing, what I see a lot of people doing online, is coming up with these systems that are true, are necessary for our own pursuit and development. But like Dugan was saying, that we're not going to see a mass liberalism or fascism or socialism movement. We're going to see these break down into individual patterns. I think that's what we're all doing. I think we are literally going through his conception in our own way.
Yeah, we talked about this last time. I agree because because the way I think about it is like the breakdown of the secular order, right? That's becoming less dominant. It's losing control. That's allowing people to kind of think more in like new ways, or at least to kind of different modes of kind of thinking. And so I do agree that's happening, but as I said, I would just kind of see that as a symptom of collapse. I don't think. I mean, all of the individual ones are necessarily going to like unify, homogenize. Like I guess, like I just think it'll be a bunch of like kind of small, different ones. But I don't know. It's hard to say. That's kind of like it's kind of like a new era, like kind of sort of thing. I agree, but I forgot what we were talking about generally.
It's a lot. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is just why I don't like metaphysics. I just don't like talking about it. I'm just not good at talking about abstract stuff in general.
I think you're very good at it. I think you are building something beyond it. And that's the whole point.
Hey, yeah, as I said, like it's I said it before. Like it's fine to like think about metaphysical stuff. I just don't like when it gets how it's in the doctrine, and like that's like the temptation. That's when I think like, the real problems come when metaphysical thinking is like kind of locked in.
Yeah, it becomes reified.
Yeah, I mean, you could just argue that it's just like a decay thing too. Like that it starts as a myth, or myth in the good sense, that like your national myth that you believe in because you bled for it and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it gets like kind of abstracted out over time, right? Like, okay, it's like the no kings thing is a perfect example of this. Like, the Democrats will be like, "Oh my God, no kings. We're being like what George Washington and everyone else did in 1776." It's like, no, no, you're not. like, like, not even this other fan of Trump. But like, no, you're not. Like, that is not even close to the same level of like what's going on here. Like, so many ways.
Yeah. But you can see
And
how from their view it is, right? Like that's a very
yes, like to me, that's symbolic manipulation. Like they've been manipulated either by themselves or whatever technology or technological thinking to think that way. That because they've read so many books, right? They've read all this history and all this stuff, and there are parallels. Again, I'm not denying that there's no parallels, right? But these protests are completely bloodless. They're completely acheless. There's no cost. That's why everyone makes fun of them, even though they're kind of like there are some comic aspects, legitimate comic aspects to them as well. But it's because it's mostly, like they're not. There's no cost to it. It's just like it's an easy thing for people to do. Like, okay, I went and did something, in the classic virtue signaling sense. But it's not a real protest. If there's no blood, if there's no cost, if there's no sacrifice, right? And that is sort of the consequence of the relationship of our two technique, that we become accustomed to that we think that, okay, this is the protesting. You just go out and you just say stuff, and that counts as protesting. And that's how change happens. But it doesn't unless there's a cost to it, right? Like the civil rights protests were because there was a cost, right? Like when they went and sat like at the rights only restaurants or whatever, they got attacked, they got harassed, right? They got violent, they got thrown in jail, they got sprayed with like fire hoses or whatever, right? King's people might get like yelled at by conservatives or whatever, but nothing, right?
Do you think it's going to rubber band further? Do you think the protests will be used? Do you think the tensions are going to keep escalating? Are we heading towards a civil war kind of situation?
Civil War, no, because there's no geography is Reuben versus rural versus urban, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really make sense like a civil war thing. I think it would be if anything, it would just separate. Like I don't.
How would we separate though?
No, separate is the wrong word. Like collapse. Like collapse is more what I think rather than like civil war. Like a collapse in central authority, right?
Yeah, I could see
I'm not
that.
saying there won't be conflict, but I don't think there will be like a north versus south thing. I think there will be conflicts as people try to get their own little way figured out, okay, and get that cemented. Again, that's like full anarchy. I don't know. I believe in spiritual collapse. I don't know what that means politically. I think political collapse tends to follow spiritual collapse, but I don't know how long it takes. I don't know what that would look like. It's kind of impossible to speculate. But I do think these kind of bloodless protests are absolutely an emphasis spiritual collapse, and specifically, like what I think it is like it's not really about Trump so much. It's about boomers like it's the death of their myth, the myth of like rational progress, like pure reason that we can discuss and calmly reason our way to the best outcomes in society, and that myth is clearly imploding, and Trump is just like their vessel, their the Girardian sense, their sacrificial goat to blame for it all. Be the symptom.
Yeah, it's something I struggle with immensely because how much of it is theatrics, how much of it is theater. It's so perfect. The archetype, Trump fits it to a T, you know? The billionaire, the playboy, the failed Hollywood version of himself. and he rises to prominence not just through a series of seemingly unlikely mass appeals, revivals of whole movements. When was the last time we saw populism in the United States like this? Like, he's resurrecting spirits anima that everybody thought had been disproven by science, and here he is doing all
That's
of
a
it.
function of social media. Like he was just primed for social media to take advantage of the change in the medium. Like I I don't think he would have got elected because he didn't. He did not get elected until 2016 when social media had really cemented and got influenced, right? And that gave individual people the more authority to speak out and connect with others who thought differently from like the mainstream consensus. Right?
It's definitely a process. It's definitely, there is that physical explanation for it. But
Well, this is land. This is straight land, and I totally agree with him with this kind of diagnosis that this like kind of bottom up technology leads to eventual changes in society that are from the technological changes. Right? Technology is not neutral. Right?
yeah,
That is land's kind of core more argument, more or less. Right? At least bottom up, like not democratic. That's not the right word. Bottom up, like kind of technological improvements are top down societal control, like more and more obsolete.
hmm.
At least again, that's what I found from him.
Hmm.
Basic so far.
What do you think the most in the know human being knows? How much do you think they grok what is really
Yes.
going on? Are they steering it? Are they being steered? Where does the control
Like
system, the symbolic
the
manipulation
most
stop?
control that like one person. Like I mean, you would have to say Trump or Elon, but I would still both or say are still completely manipulated by the system.
By the
Like
system
Trump,
or by people even above them? You don't think there are people unnamed,
there,
people who
no,
we don't
sure,
know?
there are the people turning the screws and all that, but I still think Trump was a vessel for the machine more than anything else. That's what he is. Like, I
Agree. I'm
wouldn't.
just wondering where the phase transition is. You know? Okay, so there are unnamed backers to Trump and Elon. Are there people behind them? Are there unknown systems we don't know about?
Again, I would just say it all comes down to the ultimate influence of technology. Like, even those, you can go to whatever levels of people you want. I don't know. Like, who knows? I don't.
Well, there is a
I,
transition point, though, right? Like, take it from the example of the cell again. There's a cell in your body that turns cancerous. You start feeling bad, so you go to the doctor. The cell has figured out how to evade your body's immune responses, right? The cell has become, it's metastasized. It's figured out how to spread throughout your body. But does the cell conceptualize the radiation, the therapy, the chemotherapy that's soon going to be used against it? Does the cell understand that it's not just fighting your body's intelligence? The cell is fighting the intelligence of the doctors of our medical system. Like the way the cell is being symbolically manipulated by things like radiation therapy, drugs, is
okay. All right. I'm gonna answer your bad for the bathroom quick.
yeah. I mean, you have to know them to know at what level to engage them at. You know, like if the problem is political, then it can be won through politics. But if the problem is beyond the political, then I mean, wouldn't you say that you only feel energy too? How do you feel where the boundary is? Does it help to know where that boundary is? Rocks are conscious of gravity, but if a rock desires to climb a mountain with only its level of consciousness, how could it effectuate that? Could it have to pray to a person to carry it up the mountain? Maybe that's the question, is at what level do we pray?
Um, I would say probably has to vary with the individual, like
Huh.
and like their life, and, like on what they do, like what their goals are, and they should ascertain like, okay, to what level do I need to understand stuff?
What if our
like,
goal is avoiding the uh, nuclear apocalypse? What if our goal is avoiding Armageddon and
I mean, I
the
don't think you
destruction
can
of the
assign
species?
goals to humanity like that. Like, that's not how it works.
And you could take them up yourself, right? You could assume that goal
Well,
as a person.
yeah, it's just, well, yeah, that's a good example. Okay, well then, okay, like so basically asking like if one person was trying to do what they could, not necessarily solve things like that, but to make the most difference, like how much would they need to know, like how deep would they need to go?
Yeah. What do you think is the right level of
Doing
actuation?
that big, then then you have to start with like, okay, how do I convince people to my position? That has to be first, right? If you want to cause the most effect, then you have to know how you want to convince the most people to get it, right?
Mm.
So how do you do that? You start a religion.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Who thought this about 10 years ago? Sam Altman. Like he, on one of his blog posts, he basically says that like he was referring to Apple and Steve Jobs, right? That if you really want to create a successful business, you got to turn it into a religion. That's one of his blog posts.
Mm. I don't want to create a successful business, though. I want to end the need for business. Well, you were saying sacrifice, right? Sacrifice is needed for any of these tangible outcomes. Arguably,
Yeah, or just
Apple has sacrificed hundreds of thousands of Chinese slave laborers to make their products. But can you have holy sacrifices? I mean, it's interesting talking about L. Ron Hubbard and how he says he banished a demon or prevented Jack Parsons from summoning something demonic, and he got a religion out of it. Jesus also did sacrifice himself bodily, so maybe this is a bad example, but Jesus also started his ministry with exorcisms. Can you sacrifice demons
well,
instead
I
of
would say like,
taking on those
well,
negative externalities?
in Hubbard's case, like he sacrificed a lot. I don't know if he intentionally did this, but by making himself a buffoon, right? He martyred himself because like he was mocked by almost any sane, heavy quotation marks, like in the society in his day, right? Like, well, okay, actually, not in the beginning. Like Diane X was actually a pretty big a bestseller, like 1952 or whatever it was published, right? But like, um, but over time, like he definitely acquired like, especially once I think he became more known in association with Parsons, like that he was more of on the crackpot side of thing, right? And that's sacrificing. He had to bleed for that. Like that is blood. Like being literally being like thought of as like almost inferior in some ways or weird or crazy, right? And like that's what causes people to believe in you, to believe. Like that's where that kind of persecution then it creates the martyr complex. That's always why cults. That's how cult leaders tend to thrive. Right?
Mm.
They're being persecuted by whatever outside external forces. Um, so, but I do think like Hubbard was a consequence of technology, of technological mediums, and our worship of it. That like for him, I think like well for him obviously like he was a writer, that's what he was known for. But he clearly he was sort of the symptom of the whole era of the 1960s of the disenchantment of the loss of with national government. Right, that the 50s are known for, the 40s and below that are known for being the people having a high trust in the government. Right, obviously there was the post World War II glow of the success from that.
Mm.
Right, and then that ended with the 1960s, and a lot of that had to do with the television, like radio too, but the television, because especially like for example in Vietnam, right? That Vietnam was the first heavily, I don't know, heavily first like taped war where like people on the home front could like visually see, like, what was that propaganda or not, visually see what was happening in the war and really see like some of the massacres and all that kind of stuff. It was still kept under pretty control by the U.S. government for a while.
Hmm.
But the point is that like when you see that visceral impact, then that changes you and it causes you to get more active, and that caused a lot of the revolution, chaos, I guess, upholding bad stuff happening. No, I'm not saying bad stuff. That's not the right word. Chaos, like we'll say, like spiritual chaos of the 1960s, and that so in the 1960s there are a lot of kind of like disparate movements, spiritual, religious, cultic, otherwise, that emerge because of this loss of the civic religion. That basically in the 1950s we had this shared civic cultural religion that totally splintered, mostly because of the we got farther away from World War II new generation, but also because of television that could totally change the culture, and that led to the sprinting. So what I'm saying is that like basically like a lot of Hubbard's effects came down to the effects of technology and our lack of understanding of how technology is not neutral. Okay? So to me, I keep coming back to this, because to me, I think it is the biggest thing that as a society we are not consciously aware of, like at all. It's often not even discussed. And so from a thing that we can like, rationally affect change in would be to wait, right? But to raise awareness of that, and just to be aware of like, to be educated from the beginning of like that. It's like I guess I would say that's the deepest level that we can go. And then anything beyond that, I guess, to the metaphysical stuff that is too beyond.
What's the deepest level we can go?
That I'm aware of in our current societies is how dependent we are on worship of technique, and how we are incredibly unconscious of that degree. We're aware of technology, we're aware of its effects, positive and negative, broadly speaking. But we are not consciously aware of our conscious worship of technique. And again, when I say that, technique doesn't just mean technology, it means the worship of optimization of reason, that reason can improve society, that reason can progress things spiritually, not just technologically.
Yeah.
So
my initial
that's my practical answer.
I mean, my initial response was to disagree that we can go deeper, but I think you're right in that at some point the things start to mirror in on themselves. Does that make sense? Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's
If I
what you're
think in the
saying.
sense that like, yeah, I think we've talked about this before, that that as the as our society get more dependent on technique, we start slowly getting more aware of it, or we start thinking the emergence of thinkers like also in the 60s we start seeing the emergence of media thinkers like Marshall McLuhan, Jacques Ellul, the guy who came up with the word technique, at least used it the most, right? These guys who think about technology and the impacts that it has that are distinct from just the pure what do they actually do, right? Like how do they change us as humans and reformat our societies, right? And so yes, I guess I'm agreeing that like yes, as it progresses and we get more aware, we become more conscious of it. But I don't know if I would call it a progression. I think as we get more aware of it, then I don't know. It's hard to say whether I think that is progress or not. It would be like progress, like that's undoing progress. Like that's how Ardian. That's literally how Ardian frames the Bitcoin monastery thing, right? That like he said in one post once that like the Bitcoin monasteries. Someone asked him what do they do, what do they do, right? And he's like, what do they solve? What problems do they solve? And he said, the Bitcoin monasteries solve X solves Y. Like so they're solving X solve Y. They're solving the thought that a rational program can solve a problem. Right? That if we just implement this proposal, if we just do this regulation, that will solve it. Right, and so the monasteries are basically undoing that whole enlightenment belief that we can reason our way to improve things spiritually. That's a very orthodox argument, right, from his perspective, right?
That's very orthodox to just want to go hide in the desert.
Yeah, I mean, I think he thinks of monasteries, the Bitcoin monasteries, a little bit broader than just literal. Like,
I don't mean it derogatorily. I am
I know,
Roman
but I'm just
Catholic,
saying,
but
he doesn't mean like Bitcoin monasteries in the literal isolated monasteries. Like, yes, that, but not just that. Like to him, the Bitcoin monasteries, like when people ask, like, like what do monasteries look like, when are they going to be actually built? Like that's a nonsensical question to him. He thinks that they already exist, that he and others have built them with Ark. Right? That is a monastery of repository of knowledge right now. Like, yeah, it's not physical in the sense that like physical monastery, right? But that is like the root seeds of one, right? Because like that's what Arc is, right? It's designed to, over the long term, slow down and control the rate of knowledge generation, the amount of knowledge that people have access to, right? That like the best quote unquote posts get upvoted, like with Bitcoin or whatever, right? And those are the ones people see and people have access to, and it's the job of monks to control that. Again, I think that's more or less his view, right?
So what you're
Priests.
saying is the monks are the Antichrist.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with this vision. But yeah, he thinks that, like, which I think is objectively true at this point, that like we right now, our modern humans have access to way more information that is beneficial to us, right? Like the sheer raw level from an individual perspective of just daily input of information is just too much. It's not good for the humans. Like, that's not to say that information being free isn't good. Just that's not necessarily good for humans to have access to the information be free. Right? That's fine, but for humans to become constantly bombarded with a level of information of stuff that is far away from our modern reality is not healthy. Right? So his arc is an attempt to like strain that and get it to more manageable levels. To like, hey, this is this is our canon. This is all you need to worry about. You go away from the noise of modern technology.
Everything has its purpose. I wish him all the best with that, but I could never.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
this is where like I sort of because I think the monastery, like these Bitcoin monasteries that he's talking about, I think they're inevitable. Like, I think they're going to happen. I think they will serve like a useful purpose that will make many people's lives a lot better. Do I see myself personally being one? No. I think they're cool. I'll check them out. I'll be like, okay, I'll pop in one every now and then. If we're talking about literal physical ones, right? Like I'll check them out. It sounds cool. They're a thing that should exist, but yeah, do I want them to like dominate society? To be the only things that are there? No. So yeah, I don't really. So for now, they're more designed as like kind of relief areas from what the whole mainstream cyborg theocracy is, a sort of like a islands of outposts for Orthodox people to get away from all the noise. While the cyborg theocracy burns around, right? That literally like kind of oasis in the desert kind of thing. At least that's how he envisions them. And I think he's right that is going to happen. I just don't think that like the Bitcoin monster specifically should be the only thing. If that makes sense.
yeah.
Again, this is all an assumption that he and I both agree with, that like this cyber theocracy is burning, that is dooming it. As it becomes more aware, it's becoming more conscious of itself. That's the collapse. That's what we were kind of talking about earlier. That's not a progression. It's a collapse, right? So like that, him naming it again, he was the one who came up with it. I'm pretty sure with him, right? Like, is a symptom that it's losing its authority, right? Because once you name something, that takes away its power, right? It's not operating in the shadows anymore, right? It's satanic, right? So the pure act of naming it takes away some level of power and authority, right? And then the spread begins. As more people getting aware of it, they can name it, and they can see it themselves. They can take actions to purge it. Then it collapses, right? That's what we mean whenever we say like cyber theocracy is burning, right? That it's becoming more aware of itself, that it's not sustainable. By it, I mean like the system, but also like people's parts in it.
It's interesting you say it's not sustainable because the image I was thinking of was the burning bush, which was inexhaustible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take it for granted. Like, I don't think it's necessarily yes either. Like, that's I think this goes back to the choice embraces fate thing. Like that's why I tweet every day. Right? Like if I thought it was inevitable, then why should I do anything? You know, right? Like this goes back to the whole deterministic thing. Like, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like, like whatever you can say about what I write, like no one else writes like it as far as I'm aware, right? Like, and so like that's just totally different. That's doing something new, right? And that what I'm saying is that gives me purpose, like as an individual, right? Whatever the accuracy of it may or may not be. And I guess it kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier, like how like the symptom of like AGI and how the belief in it is gradually spiritually fading is another symptom of cyborg theocracy burning. You could think of it as to like the original dream for Bitcoin, right? The pure libertarian dream, the myth, right? That like, oh, Bitcoin is gonna destroy fiat, it's gonna upend the global order, and we're gonna be the libertarian paradise or whatever, right? Does anyone think that anymore?
Yes.
I know. Okay, I'm sure there's a few. I'm sure there's a few, but as a gradual like myth, like no one believes in that anymore. Like not like because like what is Bitcoin now? It's a big corporate entity, or at least it's becoming that. Like it's literally like Trump is pro Bitcoin and yeah, basically. And it's becoming more and more integrated into corporate structures and government structures like by the day. It is not rebelling against the system. It is now becoming part of the system, right?
Yeah.
My point is like that myth died. As that myth died, I think the AGI scaling, again, this is part of my writings, that the AGI at scale myth is slowly dying. I don't think AGI myth is gonna die. I think it's gonna get replaced, reformed, right? And then that will eventually fail too. Because I don't think they're gonna get to AGI in terms of like the average person thinks of it. Then at some point, total belief in AGI will collapse.
I mean, I definitely agree about Bitcoin not serving the function that it was meant to. And I think that is in some way, I don't know. When I talk like this, do you consider it symbolic manipulation? Because I was going to say,
Symbolic manipulation is when that whatever you say doesn't match embodied reality. That's what symbolic manipulation is. It doesn't mean that you can't use symbols, right? It's when they're divorced from the reality of your situation.
can a myth adhere to reality? If I'm talking about mythological symbols, I mean, I would agree with you in some ways that,
Yes, but like that's not like you can't. It has to like cohere with like a vast amount of people for it to be like a true myth, right? Not
so
like
it
you.
has to either be particularized, it has to be about something specific, or it could be about everything.
Well, I would say more, hold ache, right? It has to like a narrative that people bleed for, and they bled for, that they believe in. It has to have costs associated with it for it to feel real, anyway, right? Like for the Bitcoin libertarian one, like that, it was almost always a dream. Did it ever feel like it was like really going to happen? Like, and I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure there were periods of hype where like once it started, like once the price like really started, the cost or the literal price of Bitcoin started rising, I'm sure there was like optimism on that front. But it could be pretty soon, relatively quickly, that it was going to get enclosed by industry. Even if it was successful, it was always going to get co-opted by government structures, right? But there are some people who did bleed for it. There's a guy who, what's his name, the Ross.
Doubt or something.
Yeah, there's a true believer guy in Bitcoin who got arrested by the U.S. government and is still under arrest. Like,
Oh, I thought
he's
Trump.
literally,
I thought
called
Trump
Bitcoin
commuted a
Jesus.
sentence.
Not that guy. The guy. Roger Ver. He's literally called Bitcoin Jesus.
I've never
That's
heard of
he
him
was
before.
Oh, you should look him up. He's pretty interesting. Like, well, actually, you should use Canonic for this. I think Canonic has his documentary. anyways, yeah, he was like an early evangelist and like of crypto, like in the good sense. Like I would agree with him that he that like crypto was going to lead to like, well, like libertarian like societies, like more fair kind of societies, like all that kind of stuff, economic freedom, all that kind of stuff. Uh, but then the government came after him for like legal issues and that kind of stuff, and
Trying to get him on tax stuff. What
yeah,
frauds?
tax evasions, right? Where like, and if you watch the documentary, he's very clear that like he knew that they were going to come after him. Eventually, he did everything he could because he's rich, obviously. Like, he was super early into Bitcoin, so he's like beyond rich, and we don't even know. Like he could be one of those guys who still has like 300 Bitcoin like stored somewhere because he was an early, yeah, right. So the government knows that, but it's not just about money. They wanted to shut him down completely because he was those guys who like, I shouldn't even say the government, like the system, like because he was too threatening to the system. Yeah, if you haven't used it on yet, it should be good stuff. Yeah, Bitcoin Jesus. Yeah.
I wonder if I could get him on a podcast.
I think he's still in jail somewhere, but I mean, if you could, but
Hey, if Elizabeth Holmes can do podcasts from prison, we can figure out how to get Bitcoin Jesus on.
I guess like, is she even in prison? Is that really? I don't know. I mean, you might be right. I don't know. So the author, the documentary is Mickey Willis. A lot of his are on Canonic because he's the guy who like, the Pandemic documentary, like the one that came out like early in the same guy. The point is that he's the same guy. Like, so a lot of his are on Canonic because they got shut down by the big tech areas during the fun early COVID days.
His YouTube profile picture is him with a piece of tape over his mouth that just says banned.
Yeah. He's that kind of guy. Yeah, you should watch the Bitcoin Juice one. It's only like 20 minutes. Like, pretty interesting story. As far as I know, he's still like in jail, like in Spain or somewhere. Like,
Oh wow, they got him overseas prison.
oh shit! Right. Well, there's a recent update. On October 14th, Mary reached a resolution with the U.S. Department of Justice by entering into a deferred prosecution agreement to settle federal tax charges. Oh my god! As part of the agreement, Ver paid approximately $49 million in back taxes, penalties, and interest. The government subsequently dismissed the indictment against him. Wow, I haven't heard about that.
Bitcoin Jesus rises.
Of course. Oh, 50 million, dude. You know that guy has been wanting to bet forever. He must be like a he's rumored to be one of those guys who are like big Bitcoin whales. Like, one of those ones that has like, tons of Bitcoin that hasn't moved for like 12 years.
Yeah.
One of those things. He definitely could be. Oh,
Huh.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he was released. Or release. I don't know what deferred prosecution agreement means.
The recommended readings on his website are Man, Economy, and State with Power and Market.
Of course.
The Law by Frederick Bastiat.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
The
was into the
Singularity is
libertarian
Near.
stuff. That's all the libertarian, the Hayek, the one VCs.
Bro,
Austrian
I
economics.
love libertarians. Libertarians are the autists of the political world, I swear to God.
Oh, RDN has a pretty good. What did he say about them? He's got a good one. They're like the retard.
Well, it's just like they all have their own special interests, you know? Like, they're incredibly...
Oh, that's definitely true, for sure. Yeah.
They're just wild people. I love libertarians.
Okay. God made libertarians to remind you that the more you worship reason and technique, the more retarded you become. It's just, I don't think that's why I agree with them. It's just so brutal and it's funny.
That is funny.
So-called libertarians who professed belief in personal liberty and decentralization will immediately propagate imperial talking points against Europe. Scratch a libertarian, you will find a weapon worshiper. He's not a fan of libertarians. BTC BTC is here to bribe libertarians into silence and complacency.
That's good. But I mean, even if Bitcoin doesn't fulfill the promise, I mean, it's just interesting to think of that from this whole archetypical framing. It's like, okay, Bitcoin Jesus basically gave up his life for Bitcoin. Granted, it made him rich, but he's had to go through all these sacrifices,
Get
and
paid. Yeah.
it has still kind of turned into his nightmare where the government is co-opting Bitcoin and it's not leading to the mass decentralization he probably hoped for. But this isn't the final act in the play yet, you know? Who knows where things might
No,
go,
definitely
and
not. Especially if you're just getting released. Definitely not.
so I don't know.
I mean, again, I do think I mean, I think what you're going with is like, do I think we will become more decentralized? Yes, after the centralized system collapses.
I wasn't even trying to draw it to something as specific as that. More like, it's interesting that he would he have worked so hard for Bitcoin if he knew where it was going to go? Not only in his specific sense where he would have to spend time in prison and all this stuff, like would his past self actually have made that deal? But even beyond that, if he knew that the government was going to potentially use Bitcoin and other systems as even stronger methods of control, that literally his nightmare was going to come to pass, he wouldn't have been able to work for it, and then his nightmare never would have come to pass. It's like a very recursive thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, maybe you would have. I mean, this is going back to reality. This, like, I mean, obviously, we're talking about Jesus. If you say that would he have done the things he did if he had foreknowledge what was going to happen, you have to say yes, right? Yeah.
Jesus is a special case, though. That's a job description as much as anything else, you know. I mean, look at how he spoke about it, even in the Gospels, where he says that he is going to have to be lifted up, that he is going to have to be betrayed. He seems to know explicitly what he's signing up for.
Yeah, I mean, and with Richard, I think he did. As I said, like to a certain extent, like 'cause remember, as I said, according to him, he knew the government was gonna come after him, right? Like,
Yeah.
now was that because he was actually not paying taxes or not? No, but he was definitely aware ahead of time that they were gonna come after him, for sure. Right? And he's always been pretty consistent with his ideological views, as I can tell. So to me, like that's legitimate faith. Right? Faith in the machine, but faith nonetheless.
Faith enough to move mountains with
Yeah.
gravitational satellites.
Like, his only mistake that he could have done was like to get more people behind him. Like he didn't really try to. He's a purist that he would just kind of thought it was like gonna happen, So he didn't try to get like a movement behind him. He didn't try to turn himself into a myth, which I am saying that he should have done that too. Almost did nothing else to protect himself, because like that's how Trump has protected himself, is because he's created this like incredible mythos around himself, right? That everyone knows who he is, and whenever anything happens, nothing can really institutionally can affect him because everyone knows about it. So they can't really do anything real to him. And the Roger Mayer like didn't, like, even though he was like, I mean, just super rich, like no one knows who he is. Like, yeah, he even has the term Bitcoin Jesus, but nobody knows who he is. Like, because Bitcoin is still relatively under the level from talking about a normal perspective even now. Now, what could he have done specifically? I don't know. I'm just saying he didn't really try to do that at all.
Well, I guess that's part of my question is how much responsibility does he bear? Let's say Bitcoin continues to be used against his initial wishes. if he knew the government was going to come after him, is he in some way morally responsible for what happens?
It's basically just Abraham and Isaac, isn't it?
In what way? Sorry, Abraham and Isaac?
Yeah, like God tells you you have to kill your son. Like, do you do it and son and save your faith, right? But maybe face the moral culpability of killing your son because some abstract being told you to do
I
it.
think you have to. I think there is a something to be said about the moral understanding that Abraham had, though. Like he grew up in a sacrifice culture. He had
Yeah, I'm
never
not saying
received
it's simple.
commandments. Had never received commandments saying not to sacrifice his son to God. There are commandments not to murder, yes, but there is nothing explicitly that said you cannot offer a life up in propitiation. So when he heard that, I think that was part of the instructive process. I think that was a moral upgrade through
Okay,
the
okay, but we're not
technology of
just talking about, like,
substitution.
we're not just talking about any life. It had to be personal for it to be included in the
What do you mean?
Bible. Was there ever going to? Okay, do you think there ever would have been a commandment where you should not sacrifice your own son? Like,
Yes.
don't agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think Abel was a human sacrifice, you know?
Okay, but it doesn't mean there's going to be a commandment.
What do you
I guess that's a pretty dark view of humanity if you think that not sacrificing your brother should be a commandment. It should be a
Well,
commandment.
again, look at the surrounding cultures. Like they would literally sacrifice their family members. They would burn their own children alive. That was not unheard of. A lot of gods, whether you think it was just for evolutionary reasons or for actual like demonic imposition, a lot of lowercase g gods demanded human sacrifice.
Yeah, that gets in kind of a complex topic of like, why does it even exist in the first place? We'll bear another pretty good episode about the Aztec.
Sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear you at the end.
I wasn't even really saying anything. I was trying to remember, like, Daryl Martin Bate has another podcast about human sacrifice, like the whole thing.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, and because I don't know if I have an answer on, like, why human sacrifice like happened. It's just so foreign to me, like that. It's not a thing that really. I mean, we may have human sacrifice in a lot of ways, but it's not personal anymore. It's systematic human sacrifice.
Do you know George Bataille at all?
Yeah, I need to read it. He's on my list to read, but I haven't read his works.
He's got a theory of, oh, what does he call it? God dang it, I can't remember. Theory of abundance or something like that. But he talks about how, since ultimately all energy comes from the sun, and it is limitless, and it is, yeah, there's an abundance of it. God, what is the word? I can't remember what he specifically calls it, but there's so much energy from the sun that you have to sacrifice that which you can't use, that which is unused. You have to make, I don't know if he thinks of it as a mimetic desire actually, or how he
I was
formulates
gonna
it.
say, like, I am familiar with Gerard, and that I do, but Gerardian sacrifice to me is more about unique individuals rather than an explanation for all human sacrifice.
I don't know if Gerard was influenced at all by Bataille. I think Bataille was prior to him. I want to say Bataille was
so.
operating in like
Chronologically,
the
I think
1920s
so,
at the latest.
but yeah, I don't know if Gerard knew them.
Yeah. But it's not just mimetic scapegoating though. It's more like, God, what is the freaking word? Not abundance. Dang it.
Gerard's theory of mimetic desire focuses on the scapegoat mechanism, but AIs work explores sacrifice and transgression as ways of transmuting violent energies and breaking boundaries.
Theology of transcendence? What? It's just gonna bother me so much if I can't remember what this stupid thing was called. It's interesting. Bataille was the first one where I learned about acephaly, the human without a head, the pure desirous being.
I've not heard of that.
The accursed share. Sorry, that's what it is. Not abundance, but accursed. Because it is so... There's a... Starting going all the way up to this limitless energy given by the sun, there is an abundance which almost fosters responsibility on us. And if that responsibility cannot be productively exercised because of the limitations of our society or our personal circumstance, then it must be murdered. It must be ritualistically offered up.
So hard. It's hard when you make that initial leap. Like I don't like super abundance of energy. Like I don't like the outpouring of slowness. This is almost metaphysical. Like it's not, but it kind of feels like it is.
You should read some of his writings. It is very...
No,
He's on the edge. I'm not saying he doesn't have a metaphysical streak to him, but he's maybe the closest I could come in terms of like a meeting between your perspective, a cordial meeting between your perspective and the metaphysicians.
It does say that book influenced Rene Girard, so Girard was used to wear him. I still need so much. Like I still need to read Anti-Oedipus. I need to read that one.
I haven't read that either.
You haven't read that? I'm kind of surprised. It's like the main, like core accelerationist text kind of thing.
I'm not very well read.
No, it's not necessary. No, I will read. I will read Bataille actually. He's for sure on the list. I still have a lot of 20th century readers to catch up on. I'm a very chronological reader.
But you made it up to the 20th century. I mean, come on. You're almost done.
But the thing is, like, there's so much more than 20th century. That's the problem.
That's a good point. It is, you are climbing up a slope now.
Yes. So, like, so basically where I'm kind of at, like, most of the classical philosophers, like Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, but I still need to read more Kierkegaard. I haven't really read it. I'm familiar, but, like, I haven't really read anything like, super deeply. Read a little bit of Hegel. I don't want to, but probably read at least a little bit.
Schopenhauer. Have you read any Schopenhauer?
Oh, I love Schopenhauer. Oh yeah, I have all this stuff. It's been a while. I probably need to read it, but I've read The World as well. Yeah.
Well,
That's it's a dense philosophy text, but it's pretty good as dense philosophy texts go. And if you don't want to read that, read his like letters, paraplagma, whatever the Latin term is. Like that's more like normal stuff. But Schopenhauer did really good. It's just interesting in general. And then I really the two big ones I need to read sooner or later are Heidegger and then Spengler, Oswald Spengler.
don't know.
But my list is always infinite.
Yeah, you'd wish there was like a philosopher that came and just sum it up at some point.
But we work like that.
That's what every philosopher thinks they're doing, I guess.
You have like, well, again, choice embraces fate, baby. You got to think like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you got to be a champion athlete. You got to think you're the best.
Mm-hmm.
You're third best. Think you're second best. You're not gonna win.
It's so funny picturing like Schopenhauer or something sitting in his study and psyching himself up. You're the best philosopher ever. Get out there, kick their asses.
Oh, he legitimately believed that. Like he he finished world as will as reputation. World as will and representation when he was like 28, and it was like, yep, I've said everything I need to say. I'm done.
That's crazy.
Like he thought he had figured out the whole universe and everything. It was all solved. No, he really didn't. He literally, that's his only philosophical writing, like abstract philosophical whole system. And he's like, all right, this is the explanation for life. This is it. I'm done. You're writing for like I don't know how long, like 20 or 30 years, and then eventually he just was like, okay, I'm just gonna start writing essays on random things like that are sort of tied to my philosophy. So he has this other kind of later period, which is just more like reflections based on his philosophy.
Huh.
Yeah, like he literally was like, I've solved everything. There will be no philosophers after me. Yeah,
That's
man was
interesting.
confident. Yeah, that's kind of what led to Nietzsche, because like Nietzsche was like, yeah, Schopenhauer's philosophy. If you believe in systems, and Hegel and Schopenhauer had essentially perfected it, that you couldn't do better than that. But the Nietzsche was like came about was like he was the first one of the first to say that these big mainstream philosophers to say that the world cannot be systemized. To attempt to systemize it um, is wrong headed from the beginning, a flaw with philosophy, a defect, and that's how he upturned Schopenhauer and turned Schopenhauer because he couldn't resonate with Schopenhauer's pessimism. That like in real embodied an experience, like you cannot live as a pessimist. Schopenhauer famously gets criticized for this. That like, he's so negative and so like pessimistic in his writing, but didn't act like it. He was a pretty happy, pretty reasonable. He wasn't well known until like his 50s or 60s or anything like that. But when he did become famous, he enjoyed it. Like I was like, really? Did you was your life really that bad? Like, and Nietzsche was like, no, he should have just been more honest with himself. And so he basically that's why he kind of started writing his own philosophy was to counter Schopenhauer's pessimism that it was not a practical way to live, and so he just kind of inverted everything and rejected systemizing because of that.
Hmm. It is always in opposition.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think that's what led to all the 20th century. Philosophers, deconstructivists, post-structuralists, whatever, postmodern and postmodernists, right? That they're trying to like pick up the shards that Nietzsche shattered. That there is no way to construct an objective system that resonates for everyone. Philosophical system. It wasn't just the death of God; it was like the death of philosophy, like in the classical sense of philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it was the death of God, or was it just the death of theology?
Well, that's what he means by death of theology, by death of God. That the death of God is the, the death of like 100% unquestioned belief in God. And well, it depends on what you. I guess it depends on what you define by theology.
Yeah.
If you mean the death of thinking about God, I mean, no. He by death of God, he means that like through authentic, unquestioned, full belief in God.
That we are
That's what
now
he.
conscious of our choice of whether to believe in God or not.
Yeah. Consciousness is a choice. That yes, that to a certain extent, like faith is like almost impossible because skepticism, like skeptical logical thinking, logically prove that God to believe in God is irrational. And again, it's not that it actually is. It's that that's how people in society as a whole perceived it,
I would
right?
agree it
And that
is. I mean, I wouldn't have any problem with you saying it is irrational. I think that's.
yeah, I mean, well, that's why it happened, right? Yeah, like right because again, I've told you this before. I agree too. I think it's because the physical, right? That if you believe in the metaphysical God, that the Sky Father, Sky Daddy, like thinking down everyone, it is kind of irrational to think of like, why would a superior building care about us? That's Lovecraft too, right? Lovecraft is a symptom of the death of God, right? That instead of thinking of, but he didn't go to atheism. He went towards that there are gods, but there are ones that don't care about us because like it's more rational, right? It's
Yeah.
more rational that a superior being would not give two shits, right? Lovecraft is a symptom like, of that kind of end state, that end of the nihilistic phase of society, right? And have you read Thomas Ligotti at all? Like
No, I don't think so.
he's,
Legati.
if anything, would be the modern Lovecraft, but he takes it even further. That like Lovecraft was like nihilistic, sort of in this cosmic horror sense that he believed that like they're superior beings to us, who humanity didn't matter as much because we were inferior. But he wasn't like a full on nihilist. Ligotti is a full on like nihilist, but in the horror sense. And so he writes horror fiction like um, Lovecraft, but the horror is more about like there's no meaning at all.
Hmm.
And so to me, there's literally no meaning to life whatsoever, and there's like no point to do anything, and that is the core horror of his stories, that are embodying that in some way or another. So it's a very depressing read. I'll throw that. Um, but to me, again, he's just a symptom of the end state of like total like psychoatheism. That like if you put your faith in true rationality, think about everything and discover the universe, this is the telos of it. That it ends in a belief in absolute nothing. That's the most rational thing.
Yeah, you become fertilizer for the next ideology.
It's a cool way of thinking about it. It's like, yeah, if you read the Gaudi, like it's so hard to describe because like it's just sad. He's a good writer, but it just feels like it's just so empty and devoid and like meaningless. And the writing is really good at it because it's real. Cause like, but it's like you feel that he literally feels this way. And, like life is purposeless, and like his writing is just like a way for him to deal with it, give him some sense of like real meaning. I guess.
Thomas Legati?
Yeah, Thomas Ligotti.
I wonder what he's like in person. Is he that miserable?
Again, I don't think he is because like he's like a depressor or something. I think. I don't know. I doubt it, but he's always been under the radar.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him before. I love horror though. I'll have to check that out.
Again, I don't really remember anything specifically, but like, have you seen True Detective? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Ligotti is like heavily based on like he's a big influence on that on the first season.
Oh wow.
He's an anti-natalist too, like to that extent, right? So Rust Cole is very much like Ligotti's philosophy.
Hmm.
Matt McConaughey's character, because he has a nonfiction book too called actually I have it here somewhere called The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, which is basically anti-natalist Bible.
That what? What do you
Like,
think is more
like
dangerous, anti-natalism or anti-AIism?
AI because anti-natalism isn't that persuasive. Like like you're literally telling a being that is built to reproduce that it doesn't make sense for it to reproduce. Like okay, like like it just your average person it just has no. You can't think like that. You just can't. Most people's perspective get their meaning from life from their children for better or worse. So the denial of that is like literally just a non-starter from the beginning. I don't think anti-natalism ever has a chance of like really going anywhere. Even if it did, like I don't buy the whole declining birth rates thing. I mean, again, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know, but like, there's 8 billion people in the world. There's plenty of people. it's we're not short of people.
Isn't it scary though if the population stops growing?
No, again, to me, that could be just another symptom of collapse. Like I,
Well, that sounds scary.
no, yeah, okay, I guess, sure.
I heard a conspiracy theory that there's actually like over 10 billion people that they've been lying to us about the population numbers.
I don't know, man. Who knows?
I like that. I like that as a conspiracy. You know, it's like the world is a lot. I don't know.
What even is the conspiracy here? What is adding an extra billion or two do? Like
I don't know.
or hiding the extra billion or two people doing here?
Maybe they're siphoning them off to the moon or something.
Okay.
Maybe it's a breakaway civilization. I could come up with justifications very easily. But
I mean,
I do need
that's not-
to wake up early tomorrow. I better skedaddle.
Yep.
You looking forward to a good week?
Yep, I think so. I should be finally done with my control posts by then, I think.
Oh hell yeah! I wanted to talk more about your posting tonight, but we didn't get to it.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do it next time. As I said, it should be done. I have 2 parts left to release, so I think I'll be done.
Hell yeah!
We'll see.
To progress.
We'll see. Yep.
I guess from that perspective, though, the work is never over.
Well, the work is never over, but I gotta move on from this particular one at some point. I have other things I want to do.
Yeah. What's next? Do you have a next project planned out?
There's a couple. First, I gotta write ethical non-alignment. I have a whole philosophy for that. That's pretty high because I've done this whole 2 posts criticizing alignment, the problem line farm control. So the immediate question people would have for me, it's like, okay, what should we do with it? Like what should we do with the machine, right? So like I gotta write that like pretty soon. But I usually probably do some podcast stuff.
Ooh, podcast. Let's go.
I like to switch kind of back and forth, like big like written posts and podcast one, just bear it up production stuff. I don't have too much podcasts yet right now. I only have a couple short ones, and I think I want to do a long one. So I have an idea.
Hell yeah.
Probably should next. I think some Cormac might be involved. So
Ooh, Cormac.
we'll see. I still gotta finish this first, and then I'll decide what's literally next.
Amen. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for.
Pleasure talking to you as always.
Fuck yeah, dude. Great talking with you. I learned so many new things from you.
Yeah, maybe this week we'll fight more doomers.
Let's go. Is it time to start a crusade against the Doomers? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh God.
Am I hearing the crusade call?
It's the whole thing, but I think they're just doomed to collapse on their own. Like I just don't think. We'll see.
Yeah, but how much fun would it be to be a part of it?
Oh well, again, this gets to the Trace and Braces thing. I would love to talk to you, Casper. So much. It'd be so much fun. I'm pretty sure he would block me. Like, so I've never done anything to him. I'm pretty sure he would block me in 10 seconds. But so tempted to say something.
Bro, you gotta start an alt and just start harassing him on it.
Don't just block me. Like Taurus, Taurus, he posts Emily Taurus, he posted it's huge. Taurus, he's so funny to me. He's so brutal. He just wrecks people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He wasn't huge, completely personal, just take down him. Guys get all his ideas. It's not that he's wrong. It's just that he's just so vindictive.
It's incredible.
He absolutely does think there's evil people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, is it possible to not believe in good and evil and still actually is that a self-defeating belief? I guess that's my question. But we can't talk about it anymore. I gotta get up.
No, we can't, because that's more or less what Land Dugan we're almost debating. But yeah, no, that's a whole other thing.
Interesting. Damn. Damn. I really want to talk about that now. I'm making a note of that for next time. We'll talk about it next time. But hell yeah, dude. Have a good night. Later. And thank you for popping in. Sneezer? Is that how you say it? Good, don't blow us up. Preferably no blowing up, although it might. Yes, I will email you. We will talk.